And we're doing this bullshit again. So, hi everybody. If you haven't been to the Shit Shootin' Sunday yet, this is Shit Shootin' Sunday, and what it will be a live broadcast done on a regular basis, like every Sunday afternoon-ish, just whenever I can get people together. Think of it like Sunday school, only for people who are probably angry at Sunday school to some extent. Yeah. Let's introduce the current guests. Anybody jumping in?
Well, you're the host, shouldn't you?
I do. This is a free form. I want it to be sort of chaotic. So, who wants to introduce themselves first?
All right, this is Mance Rayder. How's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and like where to find you?
I spend way too much time on Twitter. If you search Mance Rayder, you'll see me. It's at MN Rothbard. I'm Mance Rayder on Facebook. And I have a podcast, Free Man Beyond the Wall. I've written a book, Freedom Through Memedom, The 31-Day Guide to Waking Up to Liberty. And I should have a book coming out, another book coming out within the week. So
very cool.
That's what I do.
Yeah, and I want you to talk about, like, at the top of the hour, so like after people are done introducing themselves, a few of the people you've interviewed, because the other two were here last week, and so it'd be interesting to get your perspective on that. Sure,
no problem. Do you want me to do that now, or let introductions go through?
We're gonna let introductions go through. So we're gonna do Sprin, who's William again, and Lupinate over there.
God damn. Whatever. Anyway,
I wasn't gonna say anything.
I'm Sprin. For some odd reason, the wrong account gets logged in. I retweet stuff, I talk about stuff, and I just sort of do things impulsively.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Pretty straightforward. I haven't written a book, so in fact, I'm a shitty writer. So can't do that. That's about all I got.
With spell and grammar check these days, anyone could do it.
The books write themselves.
So, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Lupinate. I'm an anarchist, one of the few that are probably in the London area. And for the most part, you can find me on either Google Plus or on Steemit at the moment, where I'm trying to migrate all my stuff over to. I'm also Lupinate on Mines and an Arctic Wolf on Steemit. My old account unfortunately died. And for the most part, I've been writing a lot of logic proofs around volunteerism, trying to show deductive logic around rights, reality, and the rest of it. It's quite difficult, but I've got a couple of pieces up so far, and the third one I'm hoping to have up by the end of this week.
Very cool.
That's cool. That's basically what my first book was just a book on a 31-day guide to, at the end of it, that somebody would be a full-blown voluntarist. It was going through, destroying arguments, knocking down walls, and I think I did a really good job, because everything I have on Amazon is a 5-star review, which isn't something that a commie spammed 1 star. A bunch of commies from Twitter or Facebook and everything have taken it upon themselves to write 1-star reviews, but you can tell none of them are verified purchasers, stuff like that. But all the feedback I've gotten on the book is really good, and it's got me on Dave Smith's Part of the Problem, the Tom Woods show, Lions of Liberty. So, I think I might have done good.
Yeah, well, and it's doing good whenever you can make the message accessible in a different way. So I would say so.
Yeah. I mean, it's as simple. I tried to make it as simple as possible that anyone can understand it. And I've heard everything from people saying kids as young as 10 have read it, and people, you know, people's dad, they've given it to their dads, and their dads have given it to other people. So, you know,
that sounds like a good start, at least, right? I mean, that's the bit that I have trouble with, is trying to simplify.
I hear you.
So, and I hear you have some notable figures that you've interviewed on your podcast. Mind discussing a few of those and plugging that?
Yeah, sure. It's a Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. It's on the Spanish podcast channel, eBooks, because I have about 8 or 9 people in Spain that listen to every podcast, and they asked me to put it on that one specifically. But you know, yesterday I did my first live stream on YouTube with Phil Labonte, who's the lead singer for the metal band All That Remains. That was episode 101. The episode before, episode 100, I celebrated that. Tom Woods came on. I've had Jeremy R. Hammond, who's an award-winning investigative journalist, 3 times. He's talked about the Federal Reserve once. One time he did a very sober talk about vaccines. And the first time he did the history of the Israeli-Palestinian quote-unquote conflict. And that's one of my most listened to podcasts. It's about 2 hours and 5 minutes long. And it gives a lot of history that people haven't. It gives a lot of it's a very sober look at, you know, exactly what's happened in the last century over there. I've had Scott Horton on 3 times. I've had the former police officer turned voluntarist Rayford Davis on 3 times. After the Parkland shooting, the episode he did with me is one of my most downloaded. I've had Jeff Deist, who's the president of the Mises Institute, on. I've had one of the best podcasts and most fun ones was having Rollo McFlugel on, to talk about privatization of all of everything, and he just basically made arguments and just knocking people's arguments down. I think the first interview I ever did was with Adam Kokesh. So I've had Kyle Reese on, who's Blood of the Brave. Vin Armani 3 times, always talking about cryptocurrency and voluntarism. And he and I just did a live stream last Sunday night, right around this time. Well, I think it was a little bit later than this. We got on there and we talked about, I did an episode of my podcast called Libertarianism is Not Conservative. And that's been my most downloaded podcast to date, where it's just me talking. And he thought it was, he told me he thought it was brilliant. He thought I should take it on the speaking circuit as a speech, because it's something that people aren't talking about. So we did about an hour and a half last week, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I've been able to interview some good people. There's a couple other people I'm trying to get on who are talk about really tough subjects. Government. And the one podcast that I'm really proud of is on the 25th anniversary of the invasion by the ATF of the Branch Davidians' home in Waco, outside of Waco, Mount Carmel. I had Dan Gifford on to talk about the story and talk about all the lies that have been told about David Koresh and Waco over the years. And Dan was the producer of both movies, the first 2 movies to blow the lid off all the secrets that the government was keeping. Waco Rules of Engagement and Waco A New Revelation. That was definitely a podcast that I was very proud of, because people listen to that, and people have told me it changed their minds on what they've learned from the official stories. So that's some of what I do.
That's actually something I'd really like to hear a little bit more about myself, because just in like Cliff Notes form, if I'm honest, because Waco is one thing that I've never really got. I was a bit too young to really understand the politics of it when it happened.
Yeah, I mean, you want me to talk a little bit about that right now?
Well, I would, but it's not my stream.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I want it to be freeform. So if that is where the discussion leads, then that's where it leads.
Okay. Well,
do you have a topic in mind, though?
Yeah, well, we're also just getting people in. We just got up to the shocking number of 7 concurrent viewers, so I think we have some time.
Holy
Wow,
shit, 7. God, I've got to be a bit more on game here.
That's a lucky number.
I've been blasting this out on Twitter and on Facebook. Let's see if we can get some more. But the title of the podcast was "What do you do when the police show up at your door and they intend to kill you?" And basically, all these lies were told about David Koresh by people who had a falling out with him and said he was raping children, and they had guns and they were getting ready for the apocalypse. And the ATF sent someone in undercover and found out that no kids were getting abused. They actually went shooting, in back of Mount Carmel on weekends, just like a lot of people in Texas do. And the ATF agent actually went shooting with him and got so close with him, he let David shoot his gun, which is a no-no if you understand, federal procedure. And his name was Bob Rodriguez.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
And the ATF agent, Bob Rodriguez, he went to the ATF and he told them, what you've heard is wrong. And since the Ruby Ridge incident was 6 months before and they had gotten so much bad press, they were looking for a win. So basically, instead of, they believe David Koresh was doing horrible shit. Well, he went jogging every morning. He drove his Camaro around Waco all the time. They had a rock band that played local clubs. They could have arrested him anytime they wanted to. But basically on February 28th, 1993, an army of ATF agents rolled up. The first thing they did was shoot the dogs, and they started shooting through the front door of the house.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why do they always shoot the dogs first?
Because they're complete animals.
There is a tactical reason to it as well. Dogs
Plenty of tactical reasons.
Yeah, there are a lot of tactical reasons behind it. A, it's psychological warfare. You shoot the dog, everybody's already in a panic.
Right.
B, the dog itself is a weapon.
And a way to alert people to where the police are in the place there.
Yep. From a tactical perspective, it makes perfect sense.
As long as your tactics are designed to wage war against people, yeah.
Yeah, if from a tactical perspective, for doing what you have to do as a statist, it makes sense. From a humanitarian, ethical, moral perspective, it's fucking bullshit.
All I know is if you kill a dog, John Wick comes and murders your entire, everything.
Well, four ATF agents thankfully lost their lives that day. And that was part of the problem is most of their guns, what most people don't realize is at the moment that the ATF invaded and started shooting, and they ended up killing 6 people, shooting through walls and shooting from helicopters, they didn't know what to do. The first thing they did was dial 911. They dialed the local sheriff who knew them, who was friends with them, who was always on the property. And then when they realized that, the sheriff didn't know anything about the raid, he wasn't informed, they just decided to start shooting back with the guns that they had.
Wait, hold up. Yeah. The local law enforcement wasn't informed that the ATF was going to do a raid?
Nope.
What the fuck?
Maybe they just didn't get the memo.
Yep. I mean, it was well known that that everybody there was friendly with everybody outside. I mean, everybody knew these people. I mean, David Koresh was considered a biblical scholar. Scholars from all over the world went there to study with him. I mean, he had some. He probably deserved to be in jail for, you know, he was married. You know, he had married a 14-year-old, which wasn't illegal in Texas with the parents' permission, and he had it. I mean, he was fucked up. He was fucked up. I would say morally, but the point is, the ATF has nothing to do with that. The FBI has nothing to do with that. That's DFACS or whoever. You know, when you're in a status realm, they wanted to make a point, and they attacked. What they didn't expect was that they were going to take casualties, and that they had brought a cameraman with them to, you know, bear witness to what was going on. And when it turned out that they were shooting people randomly, that tape disappeared. I mean, there's all this. I mean, so much evidence. The front door, which was shot through, has disappeared. I mean, it's just the craziest story about they just basically assaulted this house, and people love to call it a compound, and that's one of those, you know, that's one of those those psyops words. Call it a compound. Well, it wasn't a compound; it was a friggin' house. They didn't have walls around it. They had a fence around it. It was a fence that swung open and closed, and they used a screwdriver to keep it shut. I mean, it was a plywood house, and you know it was a plywood house.
Big plywood house.
It was a real, but you saw how quick it burned.
I mean,
oh yeah,
straight out plywood.
Plywood does burn fast.
It was. I mean, it was.
It's kind of nice, actually. I like it.
Yeah, it was hastily made, and the only the most safe part in it was the cooler in the kitchen they had, which was also supposed to double in case of a you know, in case something like this happened. It was rock solid all the way around. Well, when all was said and done, they had busted a hole in the top of it so that they could drop gas into it. I mean, this was, and then they were shooting these, you know, and everybody's like, okay, they use CS gas, which is illegal to use in warfare, but it's not illegal to use on American soil.
On your own people. On your own people. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Just like apparently Assad, but hey.
And everybody's like, well, you know, you'll have these experts. Well, CS gas is inflammable. CS gas. Well, they were shooting these flares into there that actually the components of the flare make CS gas flammable. They said that they were, at 6 a.m. in the morning, they started spreading gasoline all around the compound and everything. First of all, there's no footage of them doing this, you know, all around the house. There's no footage of them doing this. And plus, the tanks that were rolling around before the assault on April 19th, they were setting off sparks everywhere. They were rolling over propane tanks. It would have set gasoline off quickly. And then people say, and here's the one thing they'll say is, this was a suicide cult. They said, David Koresh said, if they ever tried to come in, they'd kill them all. Show me where he said that. Any of his writings, any speeches, anywhere. Give me the evidence, because there is no fucking evidence. That's just something the government made up because they went in there and they slaughtered 80 innocent people. Mostly women and children.
And of course, I mean, that's what the government does. Whenever they make some, like, really obvious and huge blunder, they always construct post hoc a bunch of bullshit to justify it. Like, you know, I mean, whether or not you think that that 9/11 was an inside job, the fact that they let it happen after boosting the terrorists in the first place so that they could target the Soviets, you know, I don't know how familiar that sounds given the current climate, but, you know, basically, you know, after they get done arming the Mujahideen, they suddenly have a terrorism problem, and then they suddenly have a terrorist attack that they can say, hey, we need to fight back because of this. Well, maybe if you wouldn't have allowed it, that wouldn't be a thing you could manipulate, but hey, that wouldn't give you something to manipulate.
Yeah, don't even get me started, honestly, because this whole Assad thing, I've been doing a lot of research on Syria, on the Assad regime itself, from the point of view of Syrians, from the point of view of the surrounding neighbors. And from the point of view of history, because back in the 90s, it was actually a pretty fucking cool place to be. It was really up and coming. It looked really quite modern. And yeah, I mean, Libya too, I'm sure.
So was
did
Beirut
as well.
Beirut used to be called the I think it was called the Paris of the Middle East.
Hmm.
And yeah, after the early 80s, in the USS, what was it? The USS New Jersey.
Hmm.
Yeah, that didn't look that way anymore.
Now, Damascus is complete. I mean, to be honest, Syria's been practically leveled now. It's going to take a lot of Russian infrastructure, I think, to really bolster it back up, to be quite frank. But they can do it if we stop bombing them. And that seems to be the point that nobody is paying attention to. Cui bono? Who benefits from this bullshit? It sure as hell ain't Assad.
Well,
I don't get it.
Maybe that's what they're fighting over right now. The Americans want, they want the rebuilding to go to the Americans instead of to the Russians. I mean, shit, it could be that. It could be the pipeline that they've wanted to put through there for 40 years. Or
yeah, it's that. Let's be honest, it's that.
Yeah,
that's it for a pipeline.
Yeah, yeah.
That can't be the only thing.
No, to be quite frank, there are only two major causes for war: energy and religion. Those are really the only two. Well, if you want to get energy in some form, like for labor, that's what it used to be. You raid other people for slaves. Then Industrial Revolution came along. Now everybody wants oil.
Yeah, but like...
Well, I mean, or just original foothold, which is why Israel's an ally instead of an enemy.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
You need a foothold in the region. But to be fair, the Saudis, they kind of are running the show.
Is there really an issue with energy? Doesn't the United States have like a absurdly large stockpile?
Well, and there's the interesting parts, because like we've got a shit ton of resources here, but if you drain the rest of the world first, then suddenly we become the reserve of the world, and it doesn't matter that the U.S. defaulted on its currency.
Yeah.
Is anybody familiar with
piece?
I guess that would make sense.
Sorry.
I never thought of it that way.
Is anybody familiar with the Golan Heights?
No.
I'm vaguely. I know it's in Israel.
I've only looked at it. I've never looked into it.
Okay, you just said it's in Israel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't always in Israel.
No, it used to be Lebanon?
50 years ago, it was part of Syria.
Oh, Syria.
And Israel took it. And why did Israel take it? Because it is the most oil-rich section of Syria.
Of course. And Genie is involved in this, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Genie Energy has the contracts on it, which is Donald Rumsfeld, Jacob Rothschild, Larry
Murdoch.
Summers. Yeah,
don't forget Murdoch.
Lucky Larry, yo. Have any of you looked into Lucky Larry?
Are you talking about
Larry?
You're talking about
Larry
lobster,
Silverstein.
Right?
Yes, because your citation of another Larry reminded me of him. That's a fucking funny story on its own.
The guy who had the contract on the World Trade Center and took out the $3 billion insurance policy on it before 9/11.
Yeah, like right before it.
Yeah, and then
the day before.
And then after he actually petitioned in some way. I forget what the argument was. He petitioned that, because it was actually 2 terrorist attacks and 2 planes, he got paid double.
Yeah. He did.
Yep. And, also, he somehow managed to get all of his chief financial officers and people at the top of the proverbial tower out of the towers before they fucking didn't blow up, but were totally destroyed by planes.
Well, you gotta reward loyal staff, mate. Honestly, he's still a capitalist.
Yeah, well, and then there's 2 other things, like, we just lost trillions of dollars in the budget analyst office at the Pentagon, and we just, lost a bunch of other paperwork related to a bunch of money that had gone missing in World Trade Center 7, which wasn't hit by a plane, which looked like a freefall collapse, which, oh my god, is this engineered?
Well, you know what's funny is nobody cares about that. You know, the $2.3 million, $2.3 trillion was reported on September 10th to be missing. What is it, 2-3 years ago? 6 trillion was reported to be missing, and it didn't even make the news.
It barely made the news that a $20 trillion budget deficit, something that could plug our national debt completely, was missing from the DoD budget and HUD combined.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, DoD on its own, I think, had the 20 trillion. HUD had another 20. So it's ridiculous how much money they waste and lose.
And no one wants to talk about future entitlements, which on the low side are 60 trillion, on the high side 175 trillion. So, I mean, what's an extra? I mean, when you're printing your own money, what's an extra trillion here or there? So,
what's an extra quadrillion at that rate?
Well, like, don't you kind of have to move it? You have to get like trucks and stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, you just do keystrokes, man. Why do
you think there's a war on cash? There is a war on cash actively right now. They're turning it into monopoly money for a reason.
All right, so let me ask. I know that Jeremiah put up, what would, in the event of a collapse, what would happen? How prepared are you? So, what has anybody heard this whole thing about how the BTC core blockchain has been taken over by by Bilderberg?
Lightning Network. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I haven't heard about it.
Yeah. So who's relying on that in the case of an economic collapse? Since if they control it, what can they do? What can they do with it?
Well, you shouldn't rely on anything, though. That's the point. You should diversify and have some of that too.
Exactly. Diversify and explore all niches.
Does anybody have physical precious metals?
No, I don't, because I don't have like physical precious FRNs. So, but like if this thing becomes like at all like big, maybe I can do that in the future. So hint to anybody who wants to subscribe till we get to 1,000, so that we can get super chats in here.
Hey. Well, there's one thing I will say on my side: silver and gold are key components of whatever is in my bug out. Let's put it that way.
During an economic collapse.
But I've got, for an economic collapse, I've got a few bits.
I have a little bit of a different idea. I think like it's gonna be hard to get like commodities and stuff like maybe gasoline or like stuff like that. Maybe it'd be important to have a bunch of that stocked up.
Well, it's a good idea, but what's a better idea is like raw crude oil, because raw crude oil serves many purposes, including the petrol industry, which is huge with plastics and a whole bunch of other bullshit. And it's also more stable because it hasn't had the stability taken out of it by the refinement process. So I would recommend, if you were trying to invest in something like that for like the sake of commodity, don't go with gas, which is already in a state that evaporates really easily. That'd be like investing in bottled wine.
I don't know. I was just thinking.
Well, I'll be honest. Wine can actually be a decent investment if you know what you're doing.
Yes, that is for sure.
Yeah, but I was going to suggest actually food and water, because those are more high-value commodities in an actual crisis situation. I mean, look at the Great Depression. People who had food could sell the food for money and buy whatever the fuck they wanted, and they could charge whatever they wanted too, because I'm sorry, you're going to pay if you don't want to starve. That is the dreadful algebra of necessity when you deal with life, not just capitalism.
Well, I will say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Food, yeah, it's all right. I've interrupted you, but this is no big deal. Food and water are the two key things, and with bottled water that can last for 10, 20 years, you stockpile a year's, maybe two worth of that, you're sorted for quite a while. Canned food is quite easy, very, very cheap compared to like any other kind of thing. And frozen food, you just get a couple of extra fridges that may cost a few grand, but if it saves your ass in a serious crisis, it's worth it.
I was going to go back to being able to afford precious metals. even silver, which is still, I mean, silver is still under $20 an ounce. I think it's under $17 an ounce still. There are legitimate sources online, including some sources on even eBay, where you can get a bag full of silver nuggets. I'm talking about, like, little silver balls that can be something that you can use, that you could that if worse came to worse, you could trade with. And like I said, silver is not expensive. I mean, if you can get,
if you want cheap, that's a good one.
Yeah, gold is, gold still right now. I mean, I think gold's at what I think it closed out at 13.55 on Friday, and I mean that can easily go up if we start seeing the dollar drop. That can easily jump up to 1900 quick. So they sell gold in some stores. I have one dealer that I deal with exclusively, and you can get 1/10 of an ounce. You can get it that small and just throw it in a, if you have a safe, throw it in a safe. If you have a safety deposit box, throw it in a safety deposit box. But silver is so easy to get. I mean, it's literally everywhere. I mean, it's so cheap right now. I mean, think about buying some. Just you can just walk into any place that sells it and just negotiate with them, and it really is worth it. It makes you feel good that you have it. So it psychologically it makes you feel good to have it.
I've got to agree. I mean, I've got some, and I keep meaning to buy more. I'm waiting for the price to go below a certain pound rate over here, but I don't know what it is about owning that kind of metal, but it's just knowing you've got that hedge that if the shit really does hit the fan and the dollar blows out, it's a precious metal. It's something that has value and will continue to have value and can be traded for and is used in shit tons of things. So it has demand.
I think,
and it has limited supply.
I think the dollar is going to be, I think by the time the 2020 election comes around, the dollar could be as low as 60 cents. I really honestly, I mean, that's just the way it looks right now. I mean, everything is a bubble right now. Real estate, the stock market, the bond market, everything is a bubble right now. And it's just, I honestly believe that the stock market is a bear market right now. I mean, historically a bear market is you've lost 20% of value, but look at the way it's acting. The stock market in the last month has been acting like the crypto market was in December. Up and down, wild swings everywhere. And then what happened after the wild swings? Boom, it just bottomed out. I mean, I think this could be sooner than later.
It's probably going to be within the next year, I suspect. I've been kind of hedging my bets for 2019.
Well, you have to understand that it's also, people are controlling this. The Fed's controlling it also. Goldman Sachs is controlling this. If they decide they want the Democrats to take back Congress, they want the Democrats to take back the House, they'll blow this thing up before this year's election so that Democrats get in there. I mean,
when is the election?
Well, we have the midterms this year.
Yeah, but when?
November.
Oh, thank fuck for that.
Yeah. So,
I'll have the house rebuilt by then.
So, I mean, I would not put it past them because, they're not happy. They're not happy with Trump. They may be, they may act like they're happy with Trump, but they always prop up the market a lot when a Democrat's in office. When a Democrat's in office, it's great to invest in the stock market. When there's not, you really have to be careful. And I know people will say, oh, look how much the stock market went up since Trump's been elected. But anyone who knows anything about it knows it's all artificial. It's just money being pumped in from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve's buying things, and stupid people too, who think that they're.
The Federal Reserve buys bonds from people who have no money in their account, and those people with no money in their account by like sort of circulate that back and forth with the Fed to create money out of thin air, and it's all debt based. Like Mike Maloney did this great thing, this one of his most watched videos, I think, where he went over the Federal Reserve scam and called it the greatest scam in the history of mankind.
Your microphone is, for a second you'll be loud, and then your volume goes down.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll figure that out then. Thanks.
Okay. Well, yeah, Mike Maloney, check out his videos, especially his historic videos on money. They're quite eye opening. He seems like a really good guy, but remember, he's a gold bug. And well, the thing I like about him is Peter Schiff is a gold bug and a silver bug who will shit on crypto all day. Although I love Peter Schiff just for his mainstream stuff, but Maloney's not like that. Maloney understands crypto, understands that it's not going anywhere. But I love one of Maloney's great selling points for silver is you crypto guys better understand that you need silver, because everything you do is electronic, and all the electronics is running on silver. It needs silver to run. So he makes arguments like that, which are funny and true.
Yeah, it's a very valid argument, that one.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but Maloney's great. Maloney's great. I mean, that guy. Watch his videos. His videos are awesome.
So you want some doctor's equipment? You need silver. You want computer chips? You need silver. You want industrial grade piping? You need silver. Everything fucking uses silver. Sometimes in microscopic amounts. It's the most destroyed metal on Earth.
Yep. Yep.
And that alone should make people pause.
and right now, it's not being mined. It's not being mined at the rates that some people think it is. It's being mined at slightly less or the same rate that gold is.
I was following the stats of silver mining and outputs and the demand of the market for years, because I found it incredibly interesting, and I wanted to make sure my data was correct. And I kept finding this really odd occurrence where, to fill the gap, there was a government section in the stats. So there was always something that the government was donating into the supply chain. And that was going on for years. It was projected to 2012 when I looked at it back in like 2010. When I looked at it again a few years later, they changed it a bit to hide the fact that they had just basically flatlined the numbers so it was perfect output, and revealed that actually there is a deficit, and it is significant. It is like several tons per year kind of thing, at least. And there's a limited supply of government silver out there.
Well, Maloney says, he said in a video about 6 months ago, he said, he asked a question. He said, okay, are the prices of silver being artificially manipulated to be kept low? He said, yes. He goes, but isn't that a friggin' opportunity for us? Isn't that an opportunity for us to buy,
of course,
and get in low? I mean, does anybody see gold or silver going down right now any significant amount? Considering, I mean, 21 trillion, stock market's at all-time high, due to very dubious, a dubious strategy that is Federal Reserve based. And any time now,
all markets are suspect and susceptible to manipulation. Like, I mean, to say that something's being manipulated so you shouldn't use it is to say you should use nothing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, George Soros manipulated the pound to the point where he almost crashed it and made billions off of that.
Yeah, I've never understood how the fuck he did that. That is impressive brinksmanship.
He had a lot of help. A lot of help.
I think it's just a hobby for him to crash economies.
Yeah.
I think it used to be. I think at the moment he's running with his tail between his legs.
What makes you say that?
He keeps getting caught out behind Antifa. He keeps getting caught out behind other movements that are completely off board. He's been called out on pretty much half a dozen globally illegal events, and if Q is to be believed, he's got his name on a hit list.
But nobody in this country cares about that. I mean, yeah, some of us do care about that, but it's, you know, it's the loud ones on Facebook. You know, I mean,
Well,
maybe they're.
fuck you, because the whole idea of QAnon, like, we're supposed to believe that all of these messages are coming from the same people, or from the same person, that person might be Trump, that if it is Trump, we're supposed to trust all of that just blindly because it seems to make sense to some people. Nah, I mean, QAnon is a distraction in and of itself, but go ahead.
Oh, it's a psyop. It's a psyop. It's a psyop. But every psyop has a grain of truth. You just have to fucking figure out where the grains are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, I knew when I saw Alex Jones, you know, shaking his ass for Trump from day one. I mean, I knew that I knew things were going to be bad with Trump. That was a clue to me that all these promises that he made and everything, you know, and we hear, oh, do you hear about all these child sex rings that are being taken down? But no, I've heard about it from certain people, but I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any arrest records. I haven't seen anything. You know,
I've seen a lot of articles where the FBI is apparently cracking heavily down, and there has been a lot of it in the States. To be fair, there's a lot to tear down.
But to be equally fair, even though I hate the concept of fairness, to be equally fair, the whole idea of one thing being taken down, so there are a lot of them being taken down, ignores the concept that all of the ones that are being built up are still being built up, and there are probably a shit ton more of them, simply because the whole concept of, like, press, what is it, like, press gives you, there's no bad press. So, like, when you say, like, we're taking down a bunch of child sex rings, what you really mean is we're going to ignore the ones that pop up because obviously it's pretty easy to start.
Right.
Well, Backpage as well. That's the other big reason why I was thinking maybe it's give credit where there is some. That is the one thing I'll give him at the moment. Everything else, so he's a fucking idiot when it comes to economics. He's a fucking idiot when it comes to practically everything, although he did recently say he was pulling the reins on Jeff Sessions' war on marijuana.
You know, here's the thing about
that
Trump.
Happens.
He's not an idiot.
No, he's not. He's a gamesman.
Well, right. But, like, and that's what I don't like, though, because it gives him way too much credit to assume that he's doing this because he's stupid. It's just the same when anybody says any politician is dumb. Well, if they're dumb, the average person is mind-numbingly, achingly stupid, because basically you're saying that, like, all these dumb people are still able to pull the wool over the eyes of the average person. So
aren't you a pessimist? Aren't you supposed to assume that?
That kind of is what I assumed.
I assume that politicians are evil. I assume that because of that, things are going to get worse. If they were dumb, it'd be much easier to take them down. Because I'm a pessimist, I say they're not dumb.
Oh, they're not unintelligent. They're just stupid.
Yeah, that's not how the English works.
Well, there's a difference between wisdom and intelligence.
I
they
don't
aren't
know.
wise.
And they have both. Otherwise, they wouldn't be running an international global cabal.
Well, are they all in on it, or is it just some of them? Because some could just generally be stupid.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
some fall guys, maybe.
Like, to be honest, I think I don't want to say all politicians are necessarily nefarious. Like, I think Bernie Sanders is just retarded and wants nice things.
Yeah, no, he's pretty smart. He knows exactly how to manipulate people, and he was in the pocket of Hillary the whole fucking time.
It's not that hard to come up with the campaign promises of free stuff. When I was in 3rd grade for student council, I promised free donuts, and I never delivered on it.
Yeah, well, all campaigns are promising free stuff if you think about it.
Every politician promises you free jam.
It's not necessarily genius manipulator level type stuff. And also, frankly, I don't give enough credit to the government to be that level of nefarious.
Well, okay, but here's the thing. I mean, we all know, we've seen the footage of, the Hillary voters getting the shaft when the Bernie voters getting the shaft when Hillary got the nomination at multiple conventions. We saw that happen live. And so realistically, Bernie was probably just the useful opposition, the guy there to make it seem as though the Democratic Party had more values than they do. It's very easy to do that.
Yes.
All right. Well, if it's very easy to do that, that doesn't necessarily make them smart.
It does if they think they can manipulate the entire world into thinking that Trump had meaningful opposition, even though he kept on saying that he was friends with her.
Can I just add one thing, though, with regards to all this? I mean, we always say it in private, at least, and I say it often in public. Left wing, right wing, same fucking bird. We all know it's just political theater, or at least everybody in this chat room does. And
I mean, I like to play in it sometimes.
How do you mean?
It's entertainment for me.
I mean, yeah, I can get that. The only problem is it's like entertainment that involves millions of people's lives.
Yeah, that the stakes are really high on it.
Yeah, it's high stakes entertainment.
Like the dumbass ghost people who are like, oh, Hiroshima and Nagasaki are haunted. No, you just want to take advantage of the deaths of hundreds of thousands to push your bullshit.
But when it comes to things like, oh God, what was it? Well, particularly with Trump, I mean, Alex Jones crying on air over the attacks in Syria, and yet I don't remember him doing that last year at about exactly the same time when they bombed Syria for doing a chemical weapon attack with absolutely no investigation whatsoever. And they still don't know whether or not an attack actually occurred. So it's things like that. It's the I'm anti-war, oh, let's bomb some random place in the middle of the desert that nobody else will know of, at least not in America. And just think everybody's going to turn a blind eye. But it's the government I'm in right now that's freaking me the fuck out, because they're the ones that I've read about having soldiers captured in Syria from Lebanese news, not from Russian, and that the Skripal poison was all actually US-UK derived, according to the Swiss institute that studied it all. And instead of maybe backtracking a bit or trying to let the story die, they tripled down on it and blamed Russia for the spy in a bag.
Yeah, Mance, you've had a few guests on talking foreign policy. You got anything on that?
Yes, please. Just unravel this.
Go over. Ask me a question, a specific question about like what subject specifically.
Syria. I mean, is it just the oil pipeline?
Syria is a clusterfuck, man. Do you realize that in Syrian Kurdistan, the week before the State of the Union address, there were 5,000 American troops on the line, on the ground, with Syrian Kurd rebels, which are United States allies, and Turkey marched over the border and invaded. A NATO ally marched, Erdogan's men marched over the border and invaded and started a fight with Syrian Kurds backed by United States forces.
What the fuck? I mean, I knew it was bad, but this is turning into a shit show.
How about this one? Last year, the CIA-led forces got in a firefight with Pentagon-backed forces.
Wait, what?
Last year, CIA forces in Syria, CIA-backed forces in Syria got in a firefight with Pentagon-backed forces in Syria.
You're shitting me. It couldn't
No.
be that. No, what am I saying? This is the government. It's a complete incompetent force. Of course they're that incompetent.
Or maybe the whole thing was intentional, and maybe they're trying to make it look as though there's
Nah,
a conflict
I'm gonna go-
when there's not.
No.
I'm gonna
No,
go with
no.
Incompetence. Yeah, it's
Incompetence.
Look, we're talking about people who barely build roads.
Oh God, I've got a great one
Going
for that one as
elsewhere,
well.
Not because they're incompetent.
I mean, I think the amount of competent people in government is really low, and I think they're the ones that are running everything. And basically, what they're doing is they're putting orders out there, and when those orders go complete fuck, just get completely fucked up. Well, the people that they handed those orders off to get the front. They have these frontline people who get all the blame, and a lot of them are politicians. A lot of them are or congressmen and senators, and even people in cabinets. And Syria is the biggest. I mean, I think Syria has to do with the pipeline that they haven't let be built for 40 years. It has to do with dropping the dollar. It has to do with with gold. It has to do with the fact that Assad is. Well, does anybody here realize Assad is a medical doctor?
No.
Yes.
Yeah,
I knew that.
Yeah. He's a medical.
He's unbelievably eloquent if you listen to him as well.
God,
He is
he's
so
brilliant.
sane.
Well,
He
He is so sane.
He is a secular dictator in the Middle East of a country that shares a border with Israel, and they can't. If they're going to have mass confusion, murder, destruction in the Middle East, they have to get rid of all the secular dictators. And once they get rid of all the secular dictators, someone like Assad, who protects the Christians in his country, who goes out of his way to send troops to protect them from from ISIS and from Al Qaeda, who would kill Christians just on principle.
Well, he's Alawite, isn't he?
Yeah. He's
an Alawite Christian.
He's basically a genius. I mean, for him to last this long, he's a genius. Okay,
I know, it is so amazing to watch.
But they're they've so that all of the countries that kiss the United States' ass. And one thing I've come to realize from talking to Scott Horton, not only having Scott Horton on my podcast, but talking to him off the air. We talk, and he says there is no NWO trying to turn the world into one world government. He said he believed that all through the 90s. He said, and then he finally realized by talking to people like Will Grigg and people like that, who used to, Will Grigg. Yeah, Will Grigg, friggin', he was the editor for the John Birch Society newspaper. And he was a person of, a quote unquote person of color. But the John Birch Society is a bunch of racists. Okay, but he realized that what the New World Order is those people in the United States government who want to, you either become like us or we destroy you. That's what the New World Order is. The New World Order is the United States government and its allies, which would be Saudi Arabia, which would be Israel, which would be the Crown. In England and Canada. I mean,
I was going to say, because what America is becoming is what Europe is now-ish. It's basically trying. They've been trying to replicate the European solution in America, and funnily enough, the European solution doesn't fucking work because it's socialist. It is basically just watered down socialism that's supposed to placate Germany
or maybe it does work and it works exactly how they want to. The lower classes scrambling against each other weapon free and not able to fight back against the elitist scam that they're under.
To be fair, mate, if you look at the London riots that happened, I was here when that happened. And the most recent set that occurred, they were coordinated beyond belief. Most of them were done by local gangs, to be fair. But the disruptance that occurred, the police didn't act. They couldn't. There was too many people. If any of them did anything, they would get mobbed. And that is something that people often forget. Governments, it's the old V for Vendetta saying, governments should be afraid of their people. It shouldn't be the other way around. And they are. That's why America bought enough bullets to basically kill everybody in the States 3 times over. But it wouldn't work because all the people who own guns there. Over here, it's more because the sheer number of people outweigh the force. And the military over here is one of those things that's quite respected. If it turned its arms against the English, I'm not going to say the Irish because they're quite happy to do that, but if they were to turn the arms against the English, that'd be a different story entirely. They've had civil wars here before, and they very, very nearly had anarchy as well here for a while until Cromwell basically crushed a lot of the levelers. But it could work over here. They've been promising devolution as part of Brexit, so I don't know. There are agri-solutions here that I talked about last time, like Find My Bobby and things like that. So it's a mixed bag in Britain, to be quite frank. And the government itself is doing its damnedest to make sure that it doesn't stay that way. But it isn't working, from what I'm seeing. People who actually think are speaking out.
Okay. Well, anybody have it? And see, I just don't see. I don't see that happening here, unless we go local. Unless I don't know.
Well, you know, there was a strategy that I really appreciated that Jacob Bowen posted before he basically left the internet on timetofree.us, where he discussed localization and decentralization. Those are the strategies. We need to get people interested on a local level and in being reasonable.
Well, it's we have this in Georgia. We have a lot of government programs that like, let's take into consideration. Take for instance, we have an emissions program here. If you are a resident, if your car is registered in one of the 13 counties that surrounds Atlanta, and it's only around Atlanta, the whole rest of Georgia, because the population is so sparse, they don't have to take part in this. And Georgia, on a couple of occasions, has decided that they wanted to get rid of this program. And the reason they can't get rid of this program is because the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States, the federal Environmental Protection Agency, said that they will pull funding. They will pull federal funding if they get rid of it. And they're politician. As soon as you mention to a politician that there's not going to be enough money for their little pet projects, oh well, we can't do that. So, I mean,
well, that's the root of it, isn't it?
There are so many people who are just, I mean, the federal teat. I mean, look at the Scottish independence movement. I talked to Anthony Samaral about this on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I said, why do you think that they didn't vote for their independence? He said, well, and one of the things is there are a lot of older people who are relying on checks coming from London, and they're scared that if they get if they cut off that flow, that they're going to go without. So that's why one of the hardest things to do is localism. I mean, that is something you will have to educate. I mean, there are these two, they have these two paths to anarchy people talk about. The one path is that things just get so much better and we influence the culture so much that people, that eventually people will be like, okay, we can do this on our own, yada, yada.
And that's really the only way it can start, though, to be fair, Because if it doesn't start that way, they'll just establish a new government.
Well, here's the okay. Accepting that premise, accepting your premise. How do you get there? What do you do?
Well, you have to reach people where they are. Like, I'm willing to talk to anybody. That's one of the things about me. You got to be able to do, like, there has to be a significant amount of people willing to have uncomfortable conversations with people who make people uncomfortable. We have to move the extremes in our favor. That's what we have to do. You know, the big fucking chart, the political compass thing, we have to drag people from both the left and the right at the top there down to the libertarian part. And in doing so, you know, basically, we're going to have to talk to the left and the right. It's going to have to be like a discussion that's open. There's going to have to be enough of us willing to do that, that we can be examples to the community. And there's going to have to be enough people interested that we can consistently get people down from that authoritarian ivory tower to the libertarian side. Wherever they want to line up, you know, basically be okay with it if they're going to be a left libertarian and you're a right libertarian. Be okay with it if they're going to be a right libertarian and you're a left libertarian. Understand that libertarian and, you know, not authoritarianism is the goal.
Well, like on the political compass, isn't right wing basically a free market and left wing basically a socialist economy?
It's more complicated than that because it's a plane. It's not a line. You've got to look at it that way.
Yeah, but like on the compass, the x-axis is market versus you know, free enterprise state market, and the top is authoritarian.
But that's the problem.
So left libertarian would just be economic authoritarian. So,
no,
you know,
it doesn't quite work that way. You can be. Oops.
Oh,
Jeffrey Tucker would be considered a left libertarian, and I mean he's for a totally decentralized free market.
Oh, so what's the difference?
You don't have to be. The authoritarian libertarian lines would determine state market. Left and right is more.
Your approach
shall we say, your approach to that, whether it's you're socially conservative, think of it as socially conservative or liberal versus fiscally conservative and liberal.
Well, or just think about it as like, you know, whether or not you're a Mises person or a Marx person, sorry, I'm also passing gas out of my abdomen right now, but whether or not you're the Mises kind of person or more of a Proudhon, you know, there are ways to reach everybody, and being aware of those ways is the first step. And then past that, being willing to do those sorts of things, have those sorts of conversations, that's the necessary next step.
Uh-huh. See, the problem is we've got a lot of the what we need to do. We all know kind of what we need to get across here. It's better to work voluntarily with each other than it is to force somebody at the point of a gun to get something done. Yes, the latter can be more expedient, but the former is ethical.
Well, and of course, the forcing somebody by the point of a gun is more expedient in the short term, but in the long term, it just racks up a bunch of costs because you're not thinking about it because you're disconnected because somebody else is paying for it, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and also, it's kind of the way things have been run basically throughout human history. So a lot of people are kind of easy to just jump onto that because it's, you know, familiar.
Yeah, it is basically established precedent. We've had it for how many thousand years has human civilization existed?
So about that long.
Yeah, pretty much. Basically, ever since religion, when the God King became available because they needed some of the aristocrats behind the church when things went wrong with the sacrifices. That's when things really, really started going bad for people. And that was a good, like, 6,000 years before Christ, so...
A bit of a time.
We're talking a while. Bit of a time.
A little tiny bit of a few millennia.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
That's why, you know, even though I don't necessarily endorse the rest of the postmodernism this sort of comes with, I do kind of like the idea that Atari Teenage Riot came out with, just destroy 2,000 years of culture. Just, it's perfect. You know, just do it. Just get rid of it. You know, we need a new culture that's based on reason and ethics and being there for people instead of other people being there for you. We need a culture that's improved, and then society and the world and global politics will have to improve with it, or there will be a whole bunch of murder that won't make them look too good.
Let's not do that. I don't like murder.
No.
Murder.
But I think you're shooting too small, Jeremiah. It's 7,000 years of culture, not 2.
No. Don't stop at 7,000. Let's go a full 10,000.
An eon of culture.
Hey, you know what? Let's get rid of the dinosaurs. No one likes them anyway. I'm Mormon, so I have a bit of a beef with them.
Let's go back. Let's go back to Göbekli Tepe. Everything after Göbekli Tepe, yeah, we can get rid of that.
Let's find the first single cell organism and just destroy it. There we go. I'm ambitious.
Wouldn't work, multiverse theory.
Yeah.
Fuck you and your multiverse. I do what I want.
Well,
Okay,
and I just like Chaos Emeralds.
No Chaos Emeralds.
But
yeah.
like to get this to get this closer to the skeleton of this show, let's do what would you say are your top 5 prepping essentials, and why?
Well, for me, number 1, you need a weapon. Number 2, you need food and water and fuel of some description, because it's going to be a bit difficult probably if there is a true economic collapse to deal with electrical power and whatnot. That all said, the last time there was a major hit, things still ran, things still moved. And I don't know how the next economic collapse is actually going to play out. That's the problem.
I imagine things would still kind of work. They'd just kind of be a little bit wonky, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it'll be more expensive.
Like, essentially, well, you're assuming people would still use $1 after that.
Well,
Or,
I'm
you're British, so
yes,
pound,
so the pound.
So
yeah, and this is the thing, pounds.
Well, you like your petrol, right? Because that's dollar based.
Yes, but if the dollar is incredibly weak, the pound can then buy shit tons of petrol, because the pound is not technically directly linked to the dollar, to my knowledge. I know it's the global reserve currency.
You should look into OPEC. That's an interesting thing to look at.
Oh, but they control the oil supply. They control the energy. You can disrupt that very easily.
Well, I mean, you
can if they.
My joke, which it was a joke, was only related to the idea that, you know, America's still at the top, even if that's the case, because essentially America's got roots in all of the major energy production sectors. I mean, you could still like find new ways to do it that were post-government, but realistically, there's still going to be a lot of people very interested in maintaining the U.S. hegemony.
You know about Lifter, though, yeah?
Lifter? No,
yeah.
I mean, maybe, but no.
Okay, so it's the acronym for a liquid fluoride thorium reactor. It is basically a nuclear reactor which shuts itself down if it ever goes into meltdown. Physically, it doesn't need any mechanical components. It's basically a plug that melts at a certain temperature and dumps it all into a reservoir tank. It's thorium-based, which is incredibly low in radioactive energy to work with, but you can use almost all of the energy output from or that is possible for thorium to generate. Whereas with uranium, you can use about 1%. This kind of technology is basically the next leap forward. Same with things like graphene. You got to get onto the cutting edge technologies, get some sort of investment into them, because they will still be there when the shit hits the fan.
And there'll be
uninvent themselves.
Demand for like engineers.
Exactly. Learn to use that shit, because if you can do that, if you can work with the next gen stuff, you're set. I mean, I can work with like the technology side. That's what I've basically focused on, because there will always be demand for people to understand data in the modern society. Even after a collapse, that will still be necessary. So my skill set works for how I work, the logic that I'm able to do. But when it comes to actually being tactile with things, it's much better, I think, for people to get involved in the new products that are coming out there, like graphene, like metamaterials, like any of that kind of stuff. Some of it's massively beyond me, but I've heard people can manufacture graphene in their own home. I mean, apparently it's really not that complicated. I haven't looked into it myself, but I'm sure there are places online that would tell a man. But Lifter is one of those kinds of technologies that nobody wants to talk about in government because it would kill oil outright, overnight.
I mean, you'd think, those environmentalists would be into that, but you know how they are.
Oh, environmentalism is a scam. Most of them drive bullshit vehicles. Most of them eat bullshit food manufactured by bullshit people that just slap a bullshit label on it. Most of them just suck the cock of bullshit people that fly bullshit jets with their bullshit multiple homes on bullshit huge properties. Environmentalism can suck my ass.
I agree.
Don't mince your words, mate. Say how you feel.
I mean, okay, so let's get real environmentalists. Most people should die because most people don't consider their fucking impact on the environment. How's that for environmentalism? But we can't do that.
Like that. But the people he decided to kill was everyone but him. Because of course.
Yeah, well, I just think that environmentalists have very strong political stakes in maintaining the opposition to environmentalism, and I think that they suck cocks of every major bankster, every Bilderberg institution, and that's why they're directly affiliated with it. I mean, climate change is the hugest bullshit thing to come out of this. Oh yeah, we have climate change. Now we get to control a bunch of aspects of your life and simultaneously achieve our political goals. Whoops, I guess those just kind of went hand in hand. No, not like we planned them.
Do you want to get this properly delisted from YouTube? Because I could go on about climate change if you want.
Oh, I mean, go for it. I started this thing knowing that it would be very unpopular with certain people, especially their approved censors. But the idea of this is going to be spread because realistically, I'm going to put this on every possible network. I'm going to put this on DTube, on BitChute, every fucking where. It's going to be on Minds. Nobody will be able to escape this, especially not the censors. So yeah,
Good.
Go ahead, say whatever you want, as long as it's not something that would get me rated immediately. If that's the case, tell me.
I'll try not to. No, I don't think it'll be that harsh. Right. So the whole AGW, anthropomorphic global warming, which is human-driven climate change. That whole concept.
Anthropogenic, by the way.
Yeah, anthropogenic. Sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking of animals.
Yeah.
Well, I am a Nazi furry, so that would be amusing.
Anyway, AGW is pseudoscience. It just is. It tries to prove both warming and cooling events at exactly the same time, and does so by completely misunderstanding a very important law of physics. And it uses an equation that's supposed to apply only in a vacuum to justify its argument. And funnily enough, CO2 on Earth is not in a vacuum. It is in atmosphere and is surrounded by water and has lots of other effects going on with it. It's not what most people would call correct. And when they're saying both expansion of ice and retraction of ice are being caused by the same effect, you need to question what's being said. It's as simple as that. And you need to question it very, very hard and really analyze it. And nobody does.
Well, most people aren't good with science. I know I'm not, and basically most of what you said went over my head.
Basically, it's a lie being used to sell both sides of the story. That's about as lowbrow as I think I can make it at the moment.
Nah, that's too lowbrow. That explained nothing. I will never be happy.
What about you, man? What do you got to say about these environmental hypocrites?
It's just a way to transfer wealth from one class up. It's Al Gore said, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I talk about it in my upcoming book. He basically said that in order to get everything straight and all the carbon straightened out and everything, basically the amount of money he wants from every government would work out to be $40,000 from each of us. And it's just like the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is designed to take money from us and send us straight up the ladder to the people on top. It's the same thing. It's just it's about control. It's also about you put these laws in place, and then there's going to be crimes against talking out about it. So people will be thrown in jail, just like people are thrown in jail for in Canada and in most of Europe for denying the Holocaust. Which I mean, hey, it must have been a terrible happening if you throw people. It must be your most important thing that ever happened if you throw people in jail for saying it didn't happen. It must be a fact. I mean,
I'm pretty sure the Holocaust happened. Just throwing that out there. Pretty sure about that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why? And I'm not saying it didn't. Why do people get thrown in jail for? Why do people get thrown in jail for denying it?
I'm not saying
because
people in jail. Well, people are sensitive. That's probably why.
Yeah, but, that's actually what I was going to. I'm in one of those countries that throws people in jail. Only they do it now for making fun of Nazis here, so it's a bit weird that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just gonna it'll be like anything. It'll catch on as a religion. It'll catch on as a it's all of it's a religion, and there are certain things that they choose as their sacraments. And if you, Michael Malice talks about this. If you accept global warming, you're quote unquote woke. And they have their high priest Leonardo DiCaprio who flies around the world, talking about it, and they have their and then they have their banker Al Gore who I mean it's just a religion. It's just a religion that you have to buy into.
Is Al Gore still a person people talk about?
Of course.
Yeah.
I never hear about Al Gore anyway.
He invented the internet.
He may be having family troubles. You never know.
South Park.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Excelsior.
But
I mean, and all that.
It's just another system of control. It's just another way to steal money. It's just another tax. I mean, that's all it is. But except they're going to take it. This environmentalism. They're going to take it to extremes. They're going to take it to the point where where if you deny it, you will be thrown in jail. I guarantee you. I mean, I see that. That is so clear because it is one of their sacraments. It's, you know, it's part of their religion. What Malice calls the evangelical left. They're, you know, I mean, as anybody, am I the only one who realizes that the left used to be all about free love and do what you want, and now they've become Puritans?
Well,
yes,
you know,
you're not the only one.
that could have been the strategy, though. I mean, I always think about this in terms of a broader strategy. What better way to produce an unthinking class of insipid fools that you can use as tax cattle and constantly rely on to vote for your politicians to lend like false legitimacy to a system than to get a bunch of people to breed incessantly, to have a bunch of drugs that destroy the thinking centers in their brain, to have a bunch of partying and, you know, culture that doesn't seem very harmful, and then, you know, suddenly you have a class of people who claim that anybody against that is just a stodgy old Republican. How great is that all just happened to coincidentally happen?
Point of order, both, just to refute that a little bit, mate, because I'll be quite frank, every side partook in the 70s. I wasn't even born. I know my parents' history well enough. They're both Republicans. My dad's currently in Colorado.
Which did it more?
Which did it more?
Yep, because overlap doesn't discount the vast statistical majorities here.
Wait, most people aren't like super left or super right. A lot of people are just kind of themselves. Like,
but
yeah.
Okay, sure. But those who
like,
do care about politics often associate politics with their personal experiences, and the left often does the same thing, especially saying that you must hate freedom and love and beauty and art and all of these things if you want to restrict leftism at all.
Yeah, well, but that's always been the argument, though.
Didn't we start this with like a a left-right paradigm's bullshit? Well,
the left-right paradigm is bullshit, but it's bullshit from a top-down level. It's not bullshit in the individual's mind. The individual still has their very, very polarized ideas of, you know, if you love your guns more than a child, or if you love your fucking weed more than my health, you know, blah blah. There's always these fucking things that happen on an individual level, and all you've got to do is get some dumb thing that the idiotic masses can polarize themselves with, and you don't even have to be on a different team. You can be on the same team, and your acolytes don't have to.
Can I just say that I like my weed more than all of you guys' health?
Right?
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, I just
true that.
I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah.
No, I've always wanted a marijuana plant just because I like how they look.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Like I don't want to smoke anything. I hate stuff like that, but I do want a marijuana plant just to keep as a plant.
Well,
and once
like
it matures, I'll come over and take it.
Okay, but back to my thought. You know, most people are apolitical.
Yeah, I'd agree with that because, and I think statistics back that up.
Like,
if you look at voting histories.
I would say a large amount of people are apolitical, but I would not say most, because most people still by numbers participated in the political system last election.
Last election.
No, they didn't.
They don't know what. No, they didn't.
If you did it in 3 parts, Republican, Democrat, and
nobody.
Not voting, nobody won in a landslide.
Well, right, but how much of those nobodies were also into politics in some way? Even being anti-political makes you a sort of political person.
Yeah, but if that's true, mate, then all people are, well, the majority of people are anarchists. If that's true.
Wait, what? I didn't hear that.
If what you were saying is true, the majority of people are anarchists.
The majority of people have the capacity to be anarchists.
Well, no, I'm not saying I know that, but that's not what that stat would imply.
Well,
everybody doesn't. I'd say most people have the capacity, except for psychopaths.
95% of everybody I would say, I'll say this country, most of their actions and most of their interactions are done through anarchism.
Well, right, through spontaneous order.
Right.
But at the same time, they don't know what that is, and a lot of people are simply disenfranchised with politics, and that's why they didn't vote. The people who did, well, right. But what I'm saying is that
I'm sorry.
Well, right. What I'm saying though is that the people, like the majority of people, are still political. They just didn't feel represented.
Correct. Well, yeah,
I don't buy that. Most people I meet are just like, I don't really care.
Yeah, well, they're wrong. And if you brought up a political issue, they would probably have something to say about it.
They'll have an opinion, but they may not care.
A political stance.
An opinion and a stance are two different things.
Yeah.
I mean, a stance to me is the hill you're willing to die on.
Well,
I would think that any sort of stance is still a stance, even if it's not one that you're willing to stand forever with.
Well, if you went up to someone and said, "Hey, do you like pot?" Like, no, I don't like pot. And then you ask, "Well, do you care if it's legal?" Not really.
Right.
So it's not really anything right there. That's just an opinion.
But if you ask them if pot should be illegal or not, then they would have an opinion. That's a political stance.
No, some people just go, whatever. I don't care. It could go either way or not. Say political.
Well, that's not most people I meet. Most people I meet have a stance on that.
You collect chaos emeralds.
That's true.
Dude, you need the extremes. You need to start looking for some moderates.
No, I talk to everybody, though. That's the thing.
They're not even moderates. They're just people, living day to day. They don't care. Most people don't care. And I think it's actually kind of a good thing in a weird way. Most people don't care about politics.
I mean, maybe they don't care. I would say that's a possibility, but not a certainty by any stretch.
It's not certain, but it's something I certainly hope.
I hope so too.
Clearly most people really don't give a shit. At the very least.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's valid, Sprint. I really do. Because if people really gave a shit, do you think that the politicians could get away with as much as they're getting away with?
No, not at all.
I mean, come on. I mean, the Telford and Rotherham stuff over here, for example, the outrage over that is quite deep-rooted in Britain at the moment, especially as nobody seems to be talking about it. And I think it's the old, let's pretend it's not there routine, but somebody's going to bring it up again, and a lot of people are going to get outraged very quickly. They may not be speaking out online that much, or they might be speaking out on Twitter, and because I don't use Twitter, I have no idea. But I will guarantee, there's going to be people out there that are going to start standing up to this nonsense because it is rapidly becoming untenable.
I mean, it's already untenable. The fact that every unit of currency has a unit of debt on top of it means that it's untenable, means that the entire system is based on a bullshit set of numbers in a computer. So it's already untenable and it already will collapse. It's set to collapse.
To be fair, though, we're crazy people who look at every little tiny thing and try and make connections to it. Most people aren't like us.
Hey, speak for yourself. I'm literally insane. You're just crazy.
No. There's a hierarchy of madness.
I was just saying that. I just made that point.
There's crazy, there's insane, and then there's deranged. That's how it works.
Well, I'm somewhere between insane and deranged. Yeah, it's so funny when people. So you care about your guns more than you care about my children. Yes, I don't care about your kids at all.
That's your job.
I really don't care about your kids. I can't say this. I can't say this strongly enough. I don't care about your kids. I don't care about anybody's kids. I don't.
Taken out of context.
I just don't. Well, I don't.
Why should you?
Somebody using that as an excuse, to try and restrict Second Amendment. Okay, let's do a little bit of statism here. Second Amendment is about the Fourth Amendment. That the only argument the only Second Amendment the only right to own guns should be private property. That's it. You have no. What I have is none of your business. It never was. It never is. It never should be. I mean, it's done. That argument is over with, and I don't care. I don't care what you think. I don't care what anybody thinks.
Well, I think you're putting it very bluntly. I kind of like what I said on the topic like ages ago, and I said, why should my right to defend my kids be overturned because you failed to defend yours?
Yeah,
that's how I would.
I mean,
it.
Well, and I said it last week. I mean, you want to talk about the children, my children. You're not accepting. You're not accepting in that sort of paradigm that you're endorsing and asking a system to help you that has indebted all future generations of children to a life of servitude, to a life of abject order following, and to a life where they believe that all of this is for their own good, to a life where other countries may target them with fucking nuclear bombs because they're a part of this system. How what about the fucking children, huh, motherfucker? Why do you support the goddamn state if you love the children so much?
And let me just bring this up because I do have to go. After Parkland, I don't know if any of you noticed this, anybody who spends time on social media, but the people who were coming after us, who were like, no, you can't have our fucking guns, fuck you, they were almost all from Canada, the UK, and Australia. They are so fucking brainwashed by the state over there. I mean, you can't even have a butter knife. You can't even have a butter knife it seems like. I mean, I know that's become a joke and everything, but I mean, they're stopping people and taking butter knives. I mean, well, fuck you guys. Really, you're in another fucking country. I don't care. But what do I care? That's like, what do I care about I don't care what my neighbor who lives literally 50 feet from me cares about me. Why the fuck do I care about you in another country? Your opinion doesn't mean anything to me.
People will say,
go ahead.
I can extend this argument because people say, well, you should have respect for everyone. And my argument against that is quite simple. Why? Respect is earned. It is given to somebody after you get to know them. It's not something you assume is going to be given to you by default. You could be a complete and utter asshole to me, and I should respect you? Fuck off and die, honestly.
Well, here's another thing, okay? I don't have to really like people, but if I'm in public and I see somebody being, attacked or abused, even though I may not even like that person, I may not know him. I mean, I may know him and not like him. I'm probably going to step in and try and help. And
of course,
that's another thing is, you want to take guns away from people who are willing to help and step in. Now, I carry a gun on me everywhere I go. And the reason I do it is because you never know what the fuck's going to happen. I mean, just look back to the 1990s, and the greatest example of why, if you can carry a gun on you, you should, is the Luby's massacre. That restaurant, Luby's, I can't even remember what state it was. And the guy just rolled up into the restaurant and just started shooting people. And there was a woman who testified in front of Congress. And what she said was, I left my gun in the car.
Oh, yeah.
I left my gun in the car. And her mother and her father both got killed in there. Mm. And she survived. And she said, I left my gun in the car. And that's it. That's all I need to. I mean, you watch her testimony. It's on YouTube. Watch her testimony. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because she could have. I mean, she might not have been able to stop him, but she may have been able to draw his attention away from other people, while draw his attention somewhere else, while other people could have done something. She could have been able to do something. In a lot of those cases, if someone pulls out a gun and starts shooting, those people will kill themselves. And that's meant in many cases. So it's I mean, there are good. I mean, it's a fucking bumper sticker, but really the only people who are going to stop bad guys with guns or any weapon are good people with guns, and it happens all the fucking time. You just have to go to you have to go to certain websites that track it, because you're not going to hear about it on the evening news or CNN or anything.
No,
and that's why. And that's why. I mean, now we can have, like I said, I have to go, and another time we can have a good discussion about why shit like that happens, why mass shootings and all these things happen here, and they don't happen in places where guns are prevalent, where gun ownership has as high numbers as like Switzerland and places like that. We can talk about the culture sometime, but
definitely.
What about next Sunday?
I'll see what I have scheduled. The only thing that could possibly keep me from doing this is if
there's someone else in here.
If I'm doing, it's
yeah,
Bird.
Bird.
What up? I'm waiting. I'm just letting Mance lay the sermon down.
Yeah, I know. Let me no. What I want to say is, I possibly next Sunday. The only thing that could possibly keep me from doing it is if I'm trying to record for my own podcast, and this is the only time I can do it. So it's the only time I can get somebody, an interview or something like that. So
yeah. Well,
fair enough.
Keep in touch, because this is very flexible. Pretty much just going to be, whatever works for guests on Sunday afternoons. It's going to be like a rubber Sunday school.
Okay,
or
that sounds
Monday
good.
morning, as the case may be.
I mean, we see each other in private chat all the time, so just we'll see what's happening. But it was a great talk. I hope I didn't try to monopolize the time. And,
no, dude. I mean, you had to leave
mate,
anyways. There's very little likelihood you could monopolize.
Anyway, guys, you have a great night. Take care.
You too, mate.
Be well.
All right, bye-bye.
See you, man. Damn.
Bird, you bastard.
I would love to
All right, now
pick
that
his
the
brain.
adults are away, it's time for the kids to play.
LOL.
But yeah, following on from what he was saying, there was one other argument you could say. If somebody says, think of the children, say, think of the victims.
Oh.
Yeah, it's another pain point, but it's a much better argument. Think of the victims. Think of the people who got shot.
Oh, that is beautiful. Mwah.
I feel like I heard
They
things of
can't
kids
defend themselves.
A whole lot this weekend. Fuck. And Friday the 13th specifically, that argument was out and about. Well, think of the kids. We had to bomb all those places. We had to kill all these kids so that we could save the kids who died.
Let's just not bomb places. That might be easier to get people to rally around.
Yeah, let's bomb over fake news. That's always worked before.
Oh, dude, I've been following that story. That's the fakest shit I've ever fucking seen. It's unbelievable.
I still don't know about the fake stuff. I haven't really looked.
Okay.
Okay.
Do
you want to do this, Bird?
Oh,
yeah, you
I'll
take
do
it,
a little
mate.
bit.
You take it.
I'll do a little bit.
Just give me the TLDR.
Okay. As far as I know, people were gassed. Let's just lay that on the table.
Okay.
That's
so
what I
people
know.
Were gassed.
People were gassed by someone. This is all I know. People were gassed by someone. We
that's
don't know who. We don't even really know where.
That is a little bit different than it not happening.
No. Well.
Yeah,
who did we target?
I'm in a different camp.
You don't think it happened at all?
Because
I have a different camp.
I know what you're talking about. I know that it hasn't been proven it was necessarily Assad.
Well, it was a false flag anyway.
Right.
It hasn't even been proven to happen.
And you know what?
It has been always put as alleged. There's a reason for that.
I don't know
what
Lupin's talking about. That's what I want to know.
So this is the problem. The source of the videotape that did the rounds in the States and pulled at everybody's heartstrings so much was sourced by the White Hats, who are basically effectively a propaganda tool for the jihadis in the area. They have been linked to them repeatedly in video footage. They've faked events in the past. And
not to mention, because you're absolutely right, because there are images of child actors that they used in different areas that are
Yes.
the same kids. So
Yes.
this is all I'm saying. As far as I've
And-
understood it, someone was gassed. We don't know who, and there's so much fake shit tied into it that if someone was like, it didn't actually happen at all, I wouldn't even argue. I'm just going with what I've seen so far.
I've got about half an hour, and I can dump basically as quickly as I can what I know regarding this. Okay, so basically, the White Hats produced this film. Now, I reviewed some of the footage. Yeah, sorry, white helmets. I call them the White Hats because I just can't be bothered anymore with them. But these guys have produced this film where loads of people are being doused with water. Now, point one, the Russians have come out with a video of 2 doctors who worked at the facility who were interviewed about the attack by Russian soldiers. They were told basically that a bomb had struck the building and they'd all run up to try and help any victims inside the building and on the higher floor, basically, of that hospital. And then some people started shouting that it was a chemical weapon attack and started dousing everybody with water. Now, this just led me to start questioning things like, how do you treat the chemical weapon that's being described? Now, some people have said there is, they don't know what chemical weapon was used. Other people have said chlorine. So I looked into chlorine gas just to see how is it treated. And at no point does it say you should wash the person down. The only thing I could see that said that was a treatment is sulfur mustard gas, which is a bit antiquated, but was used by ISIS quite a few times in Syria. That has a very specific effect on the body none of the kids showed. So it couldn't have been that. So if it was chlorine, then there would have been maybe some foaming at the mouth. There would have been some edemas. There would have been people who would have basically choked to death. And
yeah, they'd have difficulty breathing and show signs of it.
Yes.
There's
Everybody
one image, if I could interrupt for 1 second. There's
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
image that I particularly remember that was fake because there's a kid actor in it that they juxtaposed another picture with the same kid. But there was one picture where the kid was foaming at the mouth. So even whoever's orchestrating it isn't on the same page.
And this is the thing. There is some really unusual shots of just kids who have been doused with water, people who are being hosed down for some reason. I've not really seen many instances where hosing down the person helps. It's usually some kind of anti-nerve agent or antiviral or like, some sort of injection or saline, something to keep the fluids up or something to help the body keep going. And none of this really tied into that. It just looked like a lot of people who were scared, not a lot of people who were injured. Now, perhaps there's more footage that they're not showing because everybody's a fucking snowflake now. But I really don't think it's even a legit photograph or even video even. And another thing that the Russians claimed was that in the background of some of the video footage, you can see people in uniform, British soldiers. Now, you tie that into a Lebanese article that said the Syrian army has captured some British special forces, and also the fact that May tried to tie the whole Skripal thing to Syria, and then Russia said, actually, the Skripal 8 nerve agent was made by the US and the UK. It gets a bit twisted, to say the least. So I'm just kind of waiting for more data to come out now to find out which narrative swings the balance. Because I don't know which one's going to win at this rate. Because the UK is throwing everything they can at Russia with regards to basically, if Russia was a person, the libel lawsuit they could lodge against the UK as a person would be huge.
That sounds like
Honestly.
that sounds like an interesting episode of Italia. Have you ever seen Italia? It's basically an anime where people are countries, or countries are people, and it's great. I love it. I used to use America as my avatar for the longest time because I just love him.
I like
to check that
I
one
like
out.
Syria. I like Syria girls footage of it, the coverage of it.
It's all stereotypes, and I would just love to see Russia have a libel lawsuit against Britain.
It'd be an interesting sight. It really would.
So
Britain at the moment's gone
we have-
double down.
So we have 2 more people on, though. I'd like for anybody who hasn't made themselves familiar with him from the last stream, I'd like Bird to introduce himself, and then I'd also like Finian to introduce himself and say why he came on, because he came on for a specific reason, and I don't want to get lost in the weeds.
So I'll go first. I'll get it out of the way.
All right.
Hello, everybody. I am a bird. I like volunteerism and drinking. Go ahead, Finian.
Hello. Yeah, I know a couple of the guys in the channel already, and of course, I am what I call a liberty professional, so voluntarist, anarchist, whatever you want to say. I know the terms are kind of vague these days, and everybody seems to have a freaking different definition of them. But I just came in because I heard people talking about like giving up guns because, you know, you got to give up your guns because if you don't, then you don't care about my kids, and that kind of stuff just drives me nuts. So here I am.
You
Good
look
man,
like
good man.
You look like a close-up of a blanket.
Yeah, I thought my camera was off. I guess not. Now it is.
There we go.
There we go.
Now you just look like a little blue circle with a smaller blue circle in it and kind of like an oval shape. Yeah. Very handsome man, I must say.
Did Sprin talk about how he lives on a boat this episode yet? Because that needs to get out there.
I live on a boat.
Very good.
There we
Floats
go.
on the water.
That's done.
That's out of the way as quick as possible. Look,
That's a meme and I hate it.
It's good to see you, Finian, by the way.
I would be willing to say that the whole thing was fake. I would have to do more research on my own because, yeah, the points that you bring up make a lot of sense. And I mean, specifically regarding those points, I think the only thing I would say is that you've demonstrated that
there is good reason to be suspicious.
Yes, and that you've demonstrated that chlorine gas is probably not what was used, if anything was used. Because as you said, there's too much contradictory information to begin with to say it was chlorine. And you're right.
That's the real shit, yo. Because if you start being able to say I don't know, you'll fuck with so many people that want you to take a side. That it's stunning. You just say I don't know the official story of 9/11 was true. I don't know the Syrian attacks were legitimate. I don't know freaks people out.
Well, I don't know for certain. But I work on probability.
Exactly.
That's fair enough, man. I mean, it's fair enough.
It would not surprise me if the whole thing was fake, though. Not at all.
You know what? Like I agree with you. It wouldn't surprise me.
It's a sign.
I pay some like unfortunate people.
I always err on the side of it probably happened. Just don't know why not. Something had to trigger something at some point, right?
When it comes to something, no, that's the thing. The last one,
unless you can tie it to something and have proof of it. The only thing I got to go on is the event itself. So you kind of just to try and figure out what's going on. You kind of have to err that something.
This is the problem. There are doctors who've come out saying that some of the photos of like the kids being treated, the electrodes are in the wrong position. They wouldn't actually register anything worthwhile there. That kind of thing.
Wrong as well, yeah, you know.
It could be, yes.
It can't always chalk everything up to like a conspiracy right away.
Well, this is a conspiracy for sure, but there's a difference between Assad didn't do it and no one did it. It didn't happen. I mean, even that there's a big difference.
Like I don't think.
But it's almost fake. It's almost safe to assume Assad did not do it. It's almost safe to assume that.
But guys, this is the thing. One of the key things that people do is, again, one of the gun control arguments. So get Finian back in. One of the arguments is basically we need to reduce the level of armaments because then everybody will be safer. The same thing, same sort of argument. We have to believe the victim at all times in this case. It's that mentality that's part of the problem. You can't just always believe the victim, because if you always believe the victim, then you're assuming guilt on behalf of the accused.
Yeah, and I mean,
Well,
I personally have experience with that sort of thing too, because like the whole like listen and believe movement bullshit. Like I spoke out against that as soon as it came out, because that's fucking Orwellian garbage.
Yeah,
well,
it's scary shit.
I'm not assuming guilt. I'm just assuming something triggered it, and from what I know so far, that's what triggered something. And unless
if any of you follow Sargon,
like, I'm subscribed to him on YouTube.
Okay, he's done a series of 3 videos called "A Tale of Two Narratives." They're about 20 minutes each, so it's about an hour's worth of your time. If you want a very quick synopsis, then that's probably a good start. As to why I doubt that there was even an attack at this point. I want proof of that from the investigators, which is going to be hard because they bombed the site of the attack.
Because, of course, they did.
Well, you gotta cover your tracks if you did it.
I mean, covering your tracks with an explosion is a little bit overt. And that's how it's covert.
That's like the motto
That's
of the
beauty
United
of
States
it.
military is
If
the
in
cover-ups are overt.
This is rule number 1. This is rule number 1 of any serious fuck up in a conspiracy. If at first you don't succeed, destroy all evidence you ever tried.
And
that is like basically covert ops.
Investigation can be completed.
Exactly. Or even started. But yeah, Finian, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the stupidity of gun control.
I'm still so frustrated with the Syrian thing. Even the videos coming out of it basically prove that there was no chemical attack, because none of them were wearing protective gear. And like you were saying earlier, the water thing is a complete joke. I saw nobody in that video that was having trouble breathing. And even the Russians have said basically the whole thing was fake. Now, the last one that happened, it happened, but it happened by a Western-backed rebel group. They're the ones that did it, not Assad.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, there was.
I like how every time you disagree with them, you go, "Ooh."
There was one thing I heard that Mathis said he didn't know whether it happened or not.
Like General Mattis?
Yeah, General Mathis said the one back in 2017, around the same time.
He was against this one too. He was for this one too. He was like, I don't know if this is all on the up and up, which is so weird.
For a general.
I know. He's so different. They programmed him weird.
There's many different factions, but basically he's on the opposite side of the military-industrial complex.
Even though he kind of heads it right now.
Well, one of them's jonesing for the next World War, and the other one's trying to prevent it. I mean, there's more than 2 groups, but that's basically it.
I would like to avoid a world war, no matter how good the memes up until then. There's going to be some good memes when World War III breaks out, and that's the good thing about it.
It'll be a war that was fought online.
I have to imagine that whether or not it did actually happen, which is a good point. I mean, I know we're all against intervening anyway, but even whether or not I know whether or not it did happen, we're all against intervening anyway. And I guess the narrative that what we're trying to stop is they say Assad did it, and all we have to do is say no, Assad didn't do it, and that's step 1. If we can prove it didn't happen at all, awesome. But right now they're targeting Assad, so
Well,
you know.
is it necessary to defend Assad because he is kind of a dictator?
Oh no, you don't have to defend Assad. You just have to
don't have to
defend our
defend
boys
him.
going over there.
No,
But
no, no.
you
Can I
have to
just
give
say
him
it's
some
not our business?
props.
Oh yeah, well yeah, props.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean-
for a dictator, he's still an evil piece of shit, but he's probably one of the least evil pieces of shit there. And he's a great military leader apparently because he kicked the shit out of ISIS. Besides that, he's a fucking monster, and I wish he wasn't there. And I wish someone would cut his head off.
Oh, I guess
Maybe a bit harsh, mate.
my fascination with
Dude, here's the thing.
Nap.
He's probably killed one person, right? He's probably killed one person, Assad, at least one.
like
one.
personally, like
Yeah, no, maybe not even personally, but he's probably killed like one person, right? By
Oh,
order.
I'm sure.
So
I'm sure
fuck
he's
him.
killed a few.
That's
by
all I'm
order.
saying.
maybe we should get it out of the way. We don't.
Yeah, I
support
can't really argue with
dictators.
that.
Just right
Yeah, I
off
can't
the bat.
argue with that. I mean, I don't
I'm not trying to
support
put you into
anybody
a
being
corner.
ruled. I don't
Yeah.
support anybody being ruled.
Yeah, just want to make sure that like a year from now, when we all get more popular, somebody digs this video up and is like, they're defending Assad. No.
I'm
Just
hoping
so
by
everyone
then
knows,
he'll be exonerated, to be quite frank. Of at least this one.
Oof.
Good to see it.
Oof.
I just want to go on record as saying Assad Akbar.
That'll be written down in the record, Jeremiah.
But I mean, seriously, he's done. If you think about it, he is the only, like, one of the few secular leaders left in the region.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to have them.
Oh, yeah.
It
It's
really,
not
really
a very
is.
nice
Well-
neighborhood when it comes to people.
What do you Syria?
No,
Used to
like-
be.
Like the Middle East in general.
Oh, the Middle East in general. Yeah, when it comes to neighbors, it tends to
not
swing certain ways.
not a nice thing. I'm like 10% Jewish. I think I'm not allowed in most of their nice stuff.
Yeah, 10% is way too
Mm.
much.
Too
Yeah.
much.
I
I don't think
thought
I've been
under
able to
Assad,
do
Syria,
that.
Jews lived just fine until all
did.
this conflict
Oh, in
started. Yeah.
Syria. Oh, in Syria, because they have a secular dictator.
They were fucking. I saw videos of them celebrating Easter in Damascus just a few days ago. It seems
Yep.
it's not as bad as they want us to believe. The person they want to probably install would make sure nobody gets to celebrate Easter ever again.
Oh yeah,
I like Easter.
makes certain of that.
We're not allowed to get along and be peaceful.
No,
Nobody wants that.
no, that doesn't pay.
Wait,
That doesn't
wait.
pay.
Can we be peaceful and not get along? Because I'm kind of a dick.
Oh yeah,
Is that
sure.
fine?
That's
That's
what
true?
disassociation's for.
I don't have to like anyone. I just can't
Nope.
hurt anyone. All right. We're
Yeah.
good. We got that clear.
Basically.
Disagreeing without committing violent acts against each other.
It's awesome.
I'm not
Yes.
disagreeing. I'm stating I don't like
Yeah, I mean, it's the, and the thing is again, they'll use the think of the children argument at some point, and
Yeah, the ones that are already dead, so that we can go launch bombs and kill ones that are alive. Those
yeah,
children. Yeah.
or did we? Because according to the Russians, again, 70% of those missiles didn't even hit. They're all taken down
Oh,
by older
I don't-
tech.
Oh, I don't know about that. God, that sounds hard to believe. I don't know. I'm
Really?
not. I don't know. I mean, I know someone who's a radar technician who could probably confirm that, but I don't know.
What anti-missile defense stuff exists. That's
I
not
know,
hard.
but 70% from a bunch of fucking people in the Middle East who we gave them that technology, what, 30 years ago?
And
I mean,
Russia.
Did you get that
I
radar
know,
tested on?
Well, what's Russia's tech?
No,
gap?
not right now. Not right now. I
Yeah,
can't.
they're Russian systems.
Ru-
I don't know.
Yeah, they're all Russian. They're not using American. They're Russian, and they're probably fairly decent grade, to be honest, who have done
Well, that's. I mean, that's a good thing. Everybody should have those. Jesus.
There's
Everybody should
a
have-
They work
there's
very
a
nice.
YouTube channel. There's a YouTube channel called South Front, and if you pay attention to it, they'll give you the news from the Syrian perspective of the war.
Mhm.
And they talked about the missile strikes, and basically every target that was worth protecting had anti-missile systems there and blocked every single cruise missile.
Hmm.
Every single one.
Not bad.
You have to. So you have to wonder if we did launch missiles. Well, I say we. I didn't. But if they launched missiles, what did they say? 58 strikes they launched, something like. Let's say it was 50.
100 plus missiles.
No, the targeted strikes. I'm sure they launched more than 58 missiles, but there was like 50 something targets. What the hell were we shooting at?
Well, that's the question, because
we weren't
there's
shooting
some
at chemical
people.
Facilities.
I saw a post saying that we shot at some location that what was it? Was part owned by what would equate to the list of Hydra, like CEOs included Ted Turner and some serious heavyweights.
Syrian buildings.
Yes.
Was that
apparently we shot up Ted Turner's series? Probably, because if you think about it, Murdoch's paying for the pipe. Murdoch's invested in the Genie company.
Yeah,
Genie Energy company.
A bunch of
He's invested in them, so kinda he did bomb Ted Turner.
I mean, a bunch of the former Joint Chiefs of Staff are on that. I know that.
Yeah. And there was also, I saw, I think there was a Wael on Twitter. I saw some posts of his, because I don't own an account, I just look. But they showed pictures of his university. Yeah. Basically before and after the airstrike.
Oh, shit, so they shot up, you know what, I know that they
shot up a university, that was the research center.
I know they hit a church. I saw buildings. I saw a church building destroyed. It looked like a Catholic church or an Orthodox church, probably. Didn't look like a mosque, and so that got hit. So I don't really know what the fuck they thought they did. I don't know. Someone just was like, "All right, fuck it," and he hit the red button, and they just went. I don't know what happened.
Well, all it did was show up our weakness. Not just emotional weakness, which is obvious at this point, but the tactical weakness. Well, it shows that either Russia and America are really in quite deep communication over all of this, and there is some sort of back channel going on, highly likely, or Russia knows that this is basically just saber rattling with very big sabers that cost a lot of money.
I'm surprised Russia hasn't made a bigger deal of all the Russian troops that got killed.
Yes, so far it's been about 200 Russian mercenaries. It's actually a friend of Putin's who runs a mercenary group that's in Syria now, and it's called the Wagner Group, which of course you guys can look that up. Yeah, they've lost about, supposedly 200 of them were killed by a U.S. coalition-backed attack.
See, now I've seen, besides that, I've seen like upwards of 70 actual like Russian army soldiers.
If any Russian army soldiers were killed, I think we'd be currently in a state of war.
No, but they were.
They'd back down.
Well, it's not them backing down. You need to go back and look at the Ukrainian conflict with Eastern Ukraine and how they were breaking off and splitting off from the Western. The Russians are smart enough to not be drawn into a larger conflict. And I think that same model that happened in Ukraine is happening in Syria now. So they're playing the game, basically. Even if some Russians get killed, they're not going to get pulled into a larger conflict. They're not going to
I have definitely seen some Russian soldiers. I've seen the number 77 being tossed around. And I don't know if that's just from this strike or over a period of time. But yeah, there's definitely
Russian soldiers have been killed over the time. I know that much by coalition forces.
Yeah, and I mean at that point they can't make they are not going to have a military response to this anytime soon.
Russia wouldn't win a full-out war.
No, they wouldn't. It wouldn't. But here's the thing:
don't start a land war in Russia. Only works so far.
At some point, Russia's going to have to defend its own interest, and I don't think that's in Syria. I mean, you have Bolton on record saying Iran's next, and you have the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 2003, maybe it was even 2001, saying that like Russia, like Russia or not, Iran is the last place we're going. That's where we're going when this is all that's our last key to installing whatever we need in the Middle East.
And then there's There's going to be another key, like in the next generation again.
I mean, it's always been Iran. That's always been the target. But we haven't made any moves
like
there
the
yet.
Iran-Contra affair, or the, but there's always been a place where they can establish a new foothold, and they always have to move the foothold so that essentially they keep their bases growing and they don't lose the ones they had. So like, that's the reason Trump was so keen on getting Israel to be like the Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel, because that's the favor that he did for them, that his administration would do for them in exchange for them basically extending U.S. policy over there.
Well, I mean, what is it? Where are the Golan Heights? Aren't the Golan Heights in Syria?
Yes.
Where the hell are the Golan Heights?
They're now in Israel.
Yeah, well,
They've been in Israel for some time.
Yeah, they've still been striking the Golan Heights.
Well, that's because the Golan Heights are basically, Mance was going through this, so I'll reiterate it.
Oh, I apologize.
No, it's fine. That's fine, mate. It's fine. Golan Heights are basically the most oil-rich location in Syria. And they were invaded a while back, if I remember correctly, by Israel. I can't remember which of their miniaturized wars where they blitzkrieged their way through parts of other countries it was, but one of them won them the Golan Heights, and they haven't lost it yet.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that's is it the Yom Kippur War? Is that what it was? Is that what it was?
There's so many of them, mate.
Just so many, but that would have been 40 years ago if that was the case, now that I think about it. But yeah, I mean, they've been moving into Syria.
That ties in. They've had this plan on the books for a very, very, very long time. They've been trying to take down the Assad family for a very long time.
I mean, what was it? 2 weeks ago?
Actually,
maybe?
They went after Assad's dad too. So I mean, it's gone back a whole separate generation.
Exactly. This is a multi-generational conflict we're talking. This is reigniting the Cold War. It's what the CIA have been trying to do for the past 10 years. They've been reigniting it. They've been trying to set a fire under it, and Russia just hasn't been playing with them.
Well, I mean, we know that like 2 or 3 days before we sent all those missiles in, Israel like bombed an airbase in Syria, right? Or it was a military strike against, what was it, an airbase? I believe it was in Ham. Is that what the place was called?
I think so.
Iranian forces.
They were moving in a few days before us, and I can't imagine that that's just a coincidence.
The whole thing is a powder keg ready to blow. It has been for decades.
I was going to say,
they keep it simmering.
Slow burn, yeah.
It has a very slow burning fuse.
Yeah, and I don't think this fuse goes off until we get what we want and fucking have to move into Iran next. That's when
we're not going to get what we want.
No, I don't think we are.
No, we're not. I can guarantee it. Because if Syria was that close to winning the war with Russia, they'll win the war. It doesn't matter how many times they try this shit.
Well, Iran will get involved. That's the thing. Iran will get involved, and Iran is nuclear capable, and that shit is going right into Israel, and that's not what anyone wants to happen.
I really think Iran's a red herring, to be honest. It's basically the boogeyman.
I mean, Iran has been the center of this issue because they are the only competitor to the Saudis. And I don't know if they're that much of a red herring. I don't know if they're really that much. That's a good point.
I keep forgetting the Saudis. They really
this is all about the Saudis, dude.
I know it is. I know it is. It keeps complicating shit.
The only reason why we care about Syria at all is because Syria said no to the Qatari pipeline. That's the only reason.
You were going to say something, no opinion?
I was just saying that Iran's already heavily involved. They have many forces in Syria right now helping out the Syrians, and they are really heavily and massively involved in Yemen. They're the ones that are supplying all the resistance fighters in Yemen with all their weapons. They're the ones giving them the weapons that do the most damage, too. That's the reason why Saudi Arabia is so pissed off.
Iran knows that if it doesn't keep its friends around, it is fucked. It is fucked.
Yeah, it's well aware of its situation over there. It's not good. But it's basically the other faction of the Muslim group, isn't it? It's one's Shia, one's Sunni.
I know that the
I can't
Saudis
remember
are
which is
Wahhabi.
which.
I know the Saudis are Wahhabi, but I don't know if that's Sunni or Shia. I really don't. I think they are opposed. I do. I think they are opposed.
They are opposed. I'm certain of that.
And you want to talk
Saudis.
environmental hypocrisy like we were earlier? We drive a hybrid or battery cars because it removes our dependency on oil. Yeah, well, why do you think we're in the other smaller nations like Libya and Yemen? Fucking lithium, bitch.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Afghanistan.
Lithium mining is not good. That said, again, Lifter, that reactor I was talking about, lithium mines generate shit tons of thorium. It is the most common metal on the planet, apparently.
Yeah, Western satellites can scan that stuff from space and see lithium deposits on the surface of the planet.
Are we moving to lithium now?
Afghanistan's like the largest lithium deposit on the entire planet is in Afghanistan.
These poor fucking people. They live in like one of the shittiest places in the entire world. They have no idea that any of these wars are going on. They just know that occasionally the sky drops things that blow up. It's so fucking upsetting. It's fucking terrible. And just to go back to
Pakistani children who are actually afraid of blue skies now because they don't know. I mean, that really does pull up my heart. But
just to go back to it for a second, Iran's state religion and 90% of its practitioners is Shia Islam, as opposed to the state religion of Saudi Arabia, which is Sunni Islam. I don't know how much religion plays into it, but knowing that it's Islam, I'm sure it's a lot. Yeah,
it's 100%. Those two have been at war since they sectionized. They basically, it's a sectarian war. It's been a sectarian war since Muhammad
Iran
died.
really is the only bastion of Shia Islam, isn't it? I mean, isn't it? It has to be the only Shia.
It's the main one. Yeah.
Well, and like
Iraq had a very heavy one.
Like the Afghan-Soviet conflict, where the CIA and the CFR came in and pointed them in the direction of Russia and said, "God is on your side, get him."
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then stop giving them money.
It is just crazy to think, as a Westerner, that there's still wars of religion in the world. Like, it's hard for me to comprehend that. I mean, it happens, obviously, but just thinking about that is crazy. It's just fucking, it's
Why?
crazy thought. I don't know, because we got our wars of religion over a long time ago.
Did we?
Well, whoever we is. Yeah. I feel like we did.
This is the thing. I'm not so certain.
Yeah, it's still a distraction. They use religion as an excuse, but it's always a distraction. It's always about resources.
Yeah, in the end, it's about something to produce energy. Be it people or oil or
that's what I say. I don't know. It's hard to believe that it's actually a war of religion, but I am sure that plays a large portion of why they don't like one another to begin with.
Well, like Waco was a church, basically. Waco was a religious compound, and it was destroyed because they were going, to the side of what the U.S. wanted. The U.S. wants religion to control people, and that's why they like religions like mainstream Christianity and Islam, because you can really control people with that. But the Branch Davidians were less easy to control, so they became targets. The Amish are fine; they don't use technology.
I was gonna say I don't know how much of the fact that the Branch Davidians were all killed was because of the religion or because Bill Clinton wanted to fucking make a statement in his early administration.
And wanted to detract from Ruby Ridge.
Both? Both. Sure, I'll take both.
And of course, really, fuck Bill Clinton. 30,000 fucking Sudanese people died because of Bill Clinton's bombing that pharmaceutical factory.
Yeah, 100% fuck Bill Clinton.
30,000 Sudanese people died. That is so many 9/11s in one day, and the U.S. wonders why they have enemies. Fuck that.
McVeigh was a witness at Waco too, and he was one of the ones that saw the helicopters using machine guns firing down on them, which is part of his motive. I know he was a patsy, of course, but he was actually there. He was one of the spectators watching what the government did.
So I think religion probably does.
Sorry, mate. I'm gonna have to log off. It's about 1:15 here. I've got one sort of last point to make, I think, regarding all that before I completely crash. There's the number one thing governments do is basically try and come up with any excuse, and it's always an appeal to emotion in the end, to basically commit some vast atrocity against somebody else because reasons. Doesn't matter why, it's the atrocity that matters. Think of the victims that will be, not the children. And that's, I guess, my ending thought for tonight.
And now you need to catch some Z's.
Sorry?
Oh, I should have said Zeds. I'm sorry. Now you need now you need to catch some Zeds.
Oh God, don't you do that. I hate Z. It's Z. It will always be Z.
It will. That is correct.
Oh, wait. Time out. Did the British guy say Z and not Z?
No,
Well,
they
he's
say
not really
I am not British. I'm
Yeah,
American. I
yeah,
just
he's
live
a-
over here.
He's just
You
a
sound very
proxy.
British.
He's just an American proxy.
He sounds incredibly British.
I have lived here for Jesus, quite almost half my life.
Okay. Does it wash off at any point, the American?
If I go back to the States for
Clearly-
more
Do
than
you still
2
love
days,
your flag?
Clearly,
oh God, no!
to be fair,
I don't love any flag.
I kind of like flags. They're fun to play with.
I like the
Can you do
anarchist
that?
flag. The anarchist flag is pretty neat.
That one's not too bad. I do like that one.
I like.
But
Flags
I was
are
gonna
only
say, I like-
okay.
oh,
Flags are only okay if they're for
Gadsden.
me.
The only
I
flag I,
had a
like really is Gadsden. The
Yeah, I
Gadsden
had a
flag is my flag.
Gadsden flag is a pretty nice flag. It has a snake on it, and those things are really cool.
Yeah, but the Tea Party is like converted the entire meaning of it into some kind of
Oh,
fascist
yeah.
thing. So
Yep.
I used to have a Gadsden behind me right now, and I took it down. I gave up on it.
Don't be that guy.
I was gonna say, can I like? I like Bhutan's flag. It's just a dragon. That's pretty cool.
what kind of anarchist are you that you care about other people's opinions? If you want to fly if you want to fly, you know, a Pakistan
Don't
flag,
say it.
you're a cringy fuck, but do it anyway.
Right, guys.
What did
I'm
you
off
think?
soon.
What did you think I was gonna say?
Take care, guys.
Good night.
Night.
Wait, Bird, what did you
What?
think I was
Yep, yep.
gonna say? Oh, not you.
I thought you were gonna say the Nazi flag.
No, second best, the Kekistan flag. Fucking cringy as shit, but
I will gladly allow people to violate the NAP against the Kekistanis. I mean, I know that I'm kind of playing into that, but look, they gotta go.
I like the joke when it first started. It's starting to get cringy.
Too cringy. Yeah. What did we talk about? Because I missed most of this.
We talked about Waco, guns, conspiracy, Syria.
We were supposed to talk about prepping for an economic collapse, but we talked about that for about
guns.
a second. Buy guns.
Buy guns. Everyone says buy gold. No one's gonna want gold. If we're going into the apocalypse, nobody wants gold. They want bullets. Buy as many bullets as possible. That's currency.
What is
with the best function?
Is this Metro 13? Whatever, I forget the numbers. The Metro.
Yeah,
series.
Metro 2033. Yeah.
Artyom.
Oh, yeah.
Artyom should be a hero for every capitalist everywhere because he kills Nazis and communists with money.
And aliens.
Money
Does he
being
kill aliens too?
He kills fucking aliens on top of that. Why is this guy not like the ultimate capitalist meme? Like
This is my advice to anybody who's doomsday prepping. Don't worry about gold. Buy as many different kinds of bullets as you possibly can. Preferably 38s. 38s are very common. Just buy a lot of 44s because they're cool. What else? What else?
Oh well, you can collect pennies to make your bullets with.
You can collect pennies.
That's a clever idea.
That's putting fiat to use.
A use for pennies. I got a friend who's gonna like that.
There you go.
Copper casted bullets.
Oh,
I thought
that,
Well,
were-
I mean,
they're
mostly
copper-coated.
nickel.
Yeah.
nickel.
That's right. They don't put copper in those fucking things. They might as well be made of. They might as well be made of paper. That's what will come next. This is big coins made of fucking paper.
Well, no, actually, what'll come next is the Fed coin.
Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait. You think that'll be on the blockchain?
No.
Oh, geez.
It'll be on the cock chain. That's what I
mean. I guess if it's the like an economic crisis and someone offers their watch for my food, I think I'd rather have my food than their watch.
Or bullets, so you can take someone else's food.
That's why I was thinking of. That's why I was thinking of gasoline or crude oil or like a commodity of some kind to stock up.
We're not going to need electricity where we're going.
Well, you were saying gasoline, but crude oil. Crude oil only. Gasoline is unstable as fuck.
But then wouldn't you have to refine the crude oil?
Yes,
how do you refine crude oil?
You would have petrol. You would have the petroleum products. You would have the rubbers, like the latex. You would have a shit ton of things that you wouldn't have otherwise, and not to mention that. But you would also not have a product that's hugely unstable for long periods because it's fucking oil and it came from the ground in prehistoric times.
It's made out of dinosaur shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just what about batteries?
Wait. No. I got the most important thing in an economic crisis like that. A fucking fishing pole.
Yeah, but you can make a fishing pole out of a stick. That's not a problem.
No, a good fishing pole would come in handy because you can get food with it. You could sell the food for something you need. And
why don't you just buy a gun and then put a line at the end of it? Gun fishing pole. Not a problem.
The fishing pole is not important. It's knowing how to use it.
That's true. Or you know what? Fuck a fishing pole. A net. Just get a net. Yeah. Don't fuck around with a fishing pole.
What would you do with a woman named Anne?
Sell her? I don't know.
There you go.
Can I get a picture of this Anne? On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this Anne?
You sell her. That's what you do. You sell her for bullets.
That's a reason to have a gun so that women don't become property in this next collapse.
That's absolutely. That's just on a serious note. That's true.
I mean, not. Okay, I don't think necessarily something bad happens. Everyone becomes like an asshole right away. That comes later.
I mean, during 9/11, during 9/11, I mean, I got to see like firsthand that people really don't.
You live in New York.
Yeah, I lived during 9/11. I got to watch it. I got to watch the building fall. I actually saw the building fall. And during that,
you're like my age, so you were alive during it. You were like 5.
I was a kindergartner, yeah. Wow. But I got to witness firsthand that people don't just turn into fucking monsters when terrible shit happens. Because for all intents and purposes, that day was a day in anarchy. There were no police anywhere but at the site. There was no like state-run television. Nobody was worrying about taxes that day. That was just, that was like the day in anarchy. And
that's in New York, where everyone hates each other to begin with.
Yeah, I know, and it was all good. Honestly, it was all good. I mean, it was a terrible day, but nobody was out in the streets killing one another or looting.
Yeah, so I don't really have a fear of that, because when a hurricane hit here, like a few months ago.
Where is here?
On a boat,
Florida.
Okay.
On a boat. I could dox him if you want.
Don't dox me. Don't dox me. Stop it.
You doxed yourself last time.
I doxed myself this time too. For some odd reason, the wrong email account logs in when I hit the Google Hangout thing.
Yeah, you got to go to the bottom and change it.
No, I fixed it now. It'll never happen again.
That sounds like an excuse, Billy.
Billy the Mormon.
Fucking ate all.
You know the difference between 9/11 and what's coming?
Let me guess. 8 billion people.
People weren't starving. 9/11, like what you're talking about in New York, people came together and they worked together. And
it's true. We weren't hungry.
Right. They weren't hungry. What's coming is there will be no food at grocery stores. So what is it?
Well,
it's like 3 days to chaos, 7 days to cannibalism. And literally that day's coming. Like right now in Venezuela, people are killing all the farm animals, the zoo animals, all their pets are already dead. I mean, it's that grim, and what's coming is it's a global Greater Depression.
Well, don't
And
we have?
no one's taking it seriously.
Well, don't we have guns? Stop that. I think we.
Yeah, that's the only difference is that we have guns, but unless they take them away, and even if we have guns, you can't eat guns. I mean, that is true.
Yeah, yeah, you can't eat ammo.
I don't know. I think there are going to be plenty of people eating guns if the economy collapses.
My gun. They're gonna be eating my gun.
Not old lead sandwich in the morning to get your day started, right?
I don't know, man. I don't know if we're going the same way as Venezuela. I know we're gonna crash, but I'm not confident in saying that we'll go the exact same way as Venezuela. I think
America.
A lot would have to happen for us to get to that point, and maybe that is happening, but I haven't seen.
I think generally, Americans are more prone to just ignore stuff. So, like,
how dare you? Americans are totally aware.
No.
How aware was the average Venezuelan that they let socialism come into the country, take all their guns, and kill everybody? How aware could they have been?
No. This ignoring is a little bit more deep than that. I think we'll just break laws.
Yeah, I mean,
like we'll just break regulations and whatnot to not starve to death.
We do have a different culture in this country. Not all of us, but there's a culture in this country that already hates the government.
If things got absurdly bad, everyone would. I think a lot of people would just stop giving a shit and just get stuff done.
I mean, it is possible, but like he said, he made a good point. Unless they're hungry, but I guess the issue then would be: would we be hungry? I don't know.
Well, there are plenty of people to eat, especially the fat ones.
Hey, go listen.
No, I'm just saying the culture here. If you're hungry, you go and get your food. And like, how do you get your food? Well, a lot of people know how to hunt. A lot of people know how to fish. A lot of people know how to garden in this country. I think we can find. I used to have a garden. I miss gardening. I want to do it again.
Yeah, how much basil can you eat until?
I'm just saying. I think there's a lot of opportunity to adapt to a situation like that. Now, it won't be comfortable by any stretch of the imagination. Don't get me wrong. I'm not someone who panics and doomsays like all the time. Like when the Syria strike happened and everyone was like World War III. I was like, no, calm down. That's not happening. So
you're dissing my basil eating capability, boy.
Basil eating capability. Really good garden fresh tomatoes are the best thing in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, try and eat them for 5 weeks. Try and eat them for 5 straight weeks.
Better than cannibalism.
Why do they have to be straight weeks, you bigot?
Eat them for 5 non-ambiguous weeks.
So, and we're capitalist. We believe in the market. Are you telling me we can't make food after we can't get back on track after an economic collapse?
I think he's saying that people are gonna die. I think he's gonna say a lot of people are gonna die before they figure that out.
Die to fucking everything.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yes,
wait,
but that's his point.
Are you saying that I think that things are going to be really, really bad before they get good? How dare you? I never say anything like that.
Dick. You
total optimist.
Things only get bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
Going down.
We do have a lot more active farmland than they did in Venezuela, though. Don't we?
Yeah, really far apart.
They have a year-round growing season. Most places in the United States.
We have an example. We have an example. And when the Great Depression happened, there was like 70 million Americans. 5 million died from either starvation or exposure.
I'll take that.
At that time, 90% of Americans lived in rural areas and knew how to grow their own food. And now it is the exact opposite. 90% live in urban areas, don't know how to grow their own food, and it's like 320 million.
Can I make an argument? Can I make an argument against that? GMOs?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier.
GMOs are sort of nutritionally bereft, though.
But you're eating, right? At least it's easier to grow a head of corn, no?
Well, yeah, there's plenty of rocks. I guess I could just eat those.
Rocks.
How much food do you have in your pantry? Like, I talk to people.
I live on a boat. I don't have a pantry.
You can just fish for your food, right?
I have probably 4 days of food. I
live with housemates. I have no days of food because even if I got some, they'd be gone. If the economy collapsed. But that's going to change soon.
We all believe the end is coming, and absolutely none of us are prepared. What kind of anarchist are we?
I collect Chaos Emeralds.
We should turn in our anarchist cards. We don't serve the
You must
title
not.
anymore.
You must not have any kids that you care about.
No,
I don't. No, I don't have kids. I guarantee you, I would. If I had kids, I guarantee you, I'd be a prepper. No, like it's in my blood. I can feel it. It's just, you know, those things that they sell. God, I forget. Steven Crowder used to have it on his podcast. Like he used to advertise
the mugs.
No, he used to.
Audible.
The shirts.
Total fucking sellout. But he used to sell. He used to like sell like a disaster kit, a 7-day food disaster kit. Dude.
Oh, that reminds me, by the way, there are 3 different ways to donate cryptocurrency to this program. There is a way to donate Federal Reserve notes and shirts to buy, but most importantly, this show is brought to you by LibertyMugs.com, and you can click the link in the description to blah, 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 blah.
Wait.
Everybody who's listening, go buy a Liberty mug.
Wait. Time out.
My affiliate link. Use my affiliate link.
Time out. Do I get paid to be on here?
That's a negative, Ghost Rider.
Oh, son of a bitch.
You get paid in experience and exposure, like bands.
I get paid by Liberty Mugs. You don't get paid by Liberty Mugs, Bryn?
I don't have mugs. I'm not fit.
Wait, that's your fault.
I have the same exact follower account than you. How do you have sponsors?
You get paid in karma. Good karma.
Good karma. Okay, I actually have a job. Doesn't pay very much.
But you don't have sponsors.
It's a thing where you get money from something.
Oh, that sounds like my shirts.
It's a thing where you get money to want to kill yourself.
Essentially, my foot's been killing me for way too long.
Damn, you know, I should just get so much money right now.
Show off, Finian. How many days of food do you have?
None. Watch.
It's more complicated than that.
No, he's got nothing.
It's more complicated than that.
How many pounds of food do you think you have?
For people that are interested in doing it, I recommend like many different strategies. So you have your normal pantry,
sure,
and you expand that to like 3 months, and you rotate through it regularly. And then you have your emergency food, like MREs or basically food that doesn't require any cooking. And
now you're talking about business.
Yeah, you have at least a couple weeks of that, and that's for patrolling your vehicles, all that kind of stuff. And then you have long-term food, which is wheat berries, and even rice can be thrown into it if you freeze it and store it correctly. Honey, things like that. So yeah, I have at least a year. My children, I've got 4 children. My children will not starve to death. I am making sure that they are not going to starve.
You know, I'm pretty sure an economic collapse lasts longer than a year.
Well, will they starve to the point of discomfort? Because you say they won't starve to death, but they might starve to like almost there, but they won't get there.
Yeah, they will not be happy with the food that they're eating. And my food extends all the way to the point where I can grow a garden and harvest it, which of course is the goal everybody should have.
Oh, okay. That's
well, living in Queens, that is not possible for me.
That just shows you not to be queer.
I'll tell you what, Jeremiah. I can't grow a garden, but there's so many delicious neighbors everywhere.
Exactly, right?
All right.
Yeah,
it's a trade-off.
I have an idea.
Just collect Chaos Emeralds. Collect enough emeralds that you can survive the apocalypse.
Does that mean human bodies now? Is that how you're using that?
If you want.
Basically, expand your pantry so that it lasts about 2 weeks, and then all the people that die at the 7-day mark, then yeah, for people like you, you've got plenty of food.
All right, I got a great idea for myself right now. I go all the way to Utah, and I use my Mormon connections, and then I help reestablish Zion, and then we're all
They'll be doing just fine. The Mormons will do just fucking fine.
Now, I don't know about you heathens, but I should be fine if I go up there.
Your name is Billy. You'll do okay.
Do you think Billy the Mormon? Do you think that Billy the Boat Mormon? Billy the Boat Mormon.
Don't.
Do you think they'll accept you with open arms?
No. Wait, maybe. Probably not. I'm a terrible Mormon.
In all seriousness, we're going to have a credit crisis in this country. In the United States.
This country is a credit crisis.
You're going to go to the store and there's not going to be any food.
Right.
I mean, if you want to eat, you should stockpile food. and
not
that day is
live in the
coming
middle of the
sooner than
desert
later.
like I do.
Yeah, and it's coming. I mean, people joke about it, and we all joke. I laugh about it too. But the Great Depression, the majority of people that died from hunger.
Died
And
from a
what's
lack of
coming-
preparedness.
Yeah, and what's coming is 10 times worse, and it's going to be global. I mean, I know the Great Depression was global too, but America right now has got the short end of the stick, basically. We have a lot of debt and nothing to show for it. We have no infrastructure, we've got no gold reserves, nothing. So I keep saying we, but you know what I mean. Like this country, basically, our infrastructure, our preparedness is awful. And yeah, a lot of people are going to be really screwed. It's not going to be me. Sorry.
That's a really nice way of saying dead.
Yep.
Because I think you have to be alive if you're being screwed.
Nah, there's some people into that.
Well, yes, but the blood rites have not yet been completed. Those have to, you have to collect a certain amount of emeralds before those start.
How many emeralds do you need?
Probably at least 2.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Can you trade them for food?
Well, you might be able to. They're an infinite power source with quantum entanglement properties. Depends on what you mean by emeralds. Like, there's a dude on Twitter who knows exactly what I mean by that. And what I mean by that is basically whatever you do to try and make yourself better, better as an anti-statist or as an anarchist or, fighting the system in some sort of way. That's your chaos emerald. He understood it immediately, and he posts a big picture of his ammo box wall.
Jeez.
So, I mean, he gets it. Now all y'all need to do is get it too. And, obviously Bird is going to eat his neighbors. You're going to eat fish, and Finian's going to eat MREs.
And
I'm
we're
gonna have to
all
buy some
going to
MREs.
and we're all going to tell our neighbors we told you so.
Mm-hmm. Well, my family's already starting to accept that I was right in ways that they didn't want to admit before.
Oh God.
It's like my wife. She's like, nothing has happened, nothing will happen, everything's okay. It's like, all right, well, you haven't
Just be
noticed
"All right."
like
It'll
food
buff
inflation or anything like that?
It'll buff out. It'll all buff out. Trust me on this. It'll buff out.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Just
guys,
a
I gotta
scratch.
kick off. I gotta
Half
get
the
out of here.
battle. Aw.
All right, well, hey, be well.
See you guys. Check out my podcast.
Fuck off, bastard. I hate you and everything about you. I hope you're listening while you're logging off.
He'll probably listen at some other point. Like, there's still a sliver of this left. It's like a fingernail, you cut off little bits at a time.
Little tiny bit.
Anyway, so recap. I said in the description what we talked about. We talked about Mance Rayder's Free Men Beyond the Wall podcast, Waco, Puppycide, Syria, 9/11, military-industrial complex, Bilderberg, CIA fighting the Pentagon, government incompetence, nuclear power, graphene, environmentalism, global warming, EnviroHypocrites, Holocaust Denial, messaging, strategy, conspiracies, what about the kids, and false flag. Anything I'm missing?
Who is best girl?
Well, obviously, it would have to be somebody with enough emeralds.
What kind of
That list-
emeralds? Because
That
if I
list sounded
remember
about right.
correctly, there was like a cat lady who had a different type of emerald. What was her name? Blaze? Yeah,
She
I played
didn't have.
Sonic games.
She didn't really have an emerald. She had a jewel in her forehead, though. I don't remember how that worked.
Soul emeralds. It was in Sonic Rush, I believe.
Yeah. Anyway,
Does she
so
count? Is she best girl? Is that what you're into?
no, but
No, you're not into
I don't know. They're a little bit flat chested, but either way, you were gonna say something much more grave about prepping, Finian, I think, right?
I was just going to bring up the fact that based on the list that you just gave, that Syria has become so convoluted that State Department rebels were fighting CIA-backed rebels.
Yes.
Just something to think about for the people that think they understand Syria.
Or for the people who support government at all. Like, the concept of government is what led us here. The smallest governments become the largest tyrannies. And I hope I don't already sound like an old man as well.
You do.
Because, like,
Yep.
Okay.
You do. 100% sound like an old man.
How old would both of you guess I am, by the way? I'm just curious.
50.
29. I don't know, 30?
25.
Okay. I knew you were younger than me, but I wasn't sure.
Fucking, am I a child? I'm 22.
Well, that's a type of ammo, so you're good.
It's like a small caliber though. I want
Yeah,
to be
but
a
you can
50 cal.
You can fit it in one of those life cards.
One of those life pods?
Life cards.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you're 22 LR, so you can fit in those little, like, the credit card length and width thingies that you can fit in your back pocket and give to your child so that they can use it as a pacifier.
Here you go, little Sprin. Here you go. Oh man. I would end up on the news after that. Guarantee it.
Did you know that your family is partnered with this insidious device? Find out whether or not you have one by looking through your entire house right now. Brought to you by Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all the other bullshit we want you to put in your body. Just put it in your mouth, right in your mouth. Just eat it.
Are you telling me you don't drink Coke and Pepsi?
I actually don't.
Holy shit, I don't believe you.
I drink energy drinks mostly if I do drink them, but mostly if I'm going to do that, it's going to be...
That is significantly worse than a Coke.
Yeah, those are worse.
Well,
I avoid sugar as if it was poison, because it is.
Well, no, I mean, why is it worse than Coke? Coke has literal properties that strip rust off metal. Why is it worse than Coke?
Because
the
Coke
energy
tastes
drinks
delicious
have all
and
kinds of
energy
bad
drinks.
chemicals.
Sorry, what? Either of you?
I said Coke is delicious and shut the fuck up. He said something more reasonable of an argument.
The energy drinks have a lot of bad chemicals in them.
Yeah,
Even
you're
worse
right,
than
but
Coke.
none of them strip rust off of metal.
And it tastes like ass. Your fucking energy.
Well, I mean, whatever you say, your stuff is the stuff that they use for the California Highway Patrol to strip accident scenes of the gore. So you can use.
I used it at work once in order to get rid of the lime on the machine.
Yeah, huh? You want to drink that, motherfucker? Put that in your mouth.
I did drink it afterwards.
Well, yeah, but don't.
I had a glass
and if you do, make sure. And if you do, make sure that before you do, you buy a Liberty mug from the link in the description.
Product placement.
Wait, I'll need to check out this link.
I do what I want. If I want to drink Coke, I'll drink Coke. I'll even drink
Yeah, but
Coke.
I don't want to drink Coke because it sounds terrible.
Why does it sound terrible?
It's your body. You can do with it what you want.
It's like corn syrup. It's water. It's citric carbonated acid.
Yeah, of course, and it's also a lie. There is no Coca in Coca-Cola. It's a lie.
There used to be.
Okay.
And
Bill Clinton used to be somebody that people considered attractive. Now he's a golem.
He looks the same to me as he did back in the 90s. I don't know why.
Maybe it's because you maybe you use the contacts version of the They Live shades. And you've always been able to see Gollum Clinton.
I've been woke since before I was born.
And yet you drink Coke, which means your pituitary gland is like constantly being raped by a train of like trained inmates.
Okay. I'm not going to stop, and you know that, right?
Yeah, but I have to collect Chaos Emeralds, so I have to make it chaotic in here.
You have to make it chaotic. Don't I already classify?
Possibly, but you drink Coke. That makes you tame. That makes you one of the cattle.
One of the cattle, because I drink Coke.
Yeah, You need to be edgy like me and drink energy drinks.
I hate energy
Products
drinks.
are what make
I'm
your
Mormon.
personality.
I'm Mormon. I'm barely allowed to drink Coke.
Then
Definitely
leave
can't drink
that,
energy
because
drinks.
that's toxic.
No. I also drink
It sounds
coffee.
like it sounds like
Mormon.
it sounds like Mormonism is what's really toxic here. I just pissed off a bunch of people. My Glenn Beck coalition is gone.
Oh man.
Now I'll never know what it's like to wear jeans that look way too old, but were purchased yesterday.
They're very comfortable. That's a lie.
Well,
That's
of course
really
it's a
bad
lie.
lie.
A Mormon said it. That's why you're also supporting Coca-Cola, because you're a
Mormons
Mormon.
own Coca-Cola.
Well, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I think they're Jews.
No, they're like Jews, but with Jesus, is how I've always described it to people. It's probably not very accurate, and there's probably my elder is yelling at me somewhere. Like my elder.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure you're not just hallucinating from drinking a bad drink?
Too much caffeine.
You never know these days. What's real?
And I just had 300 milligrams of just caffeine pills like maybe an hour ago, so those are all in me now.
You know, I'm just gonna drink a Dr. Pepper after this because I know it's gonna drive you insane. Because I'm out of Coke.
Well, Dr. Pepper is worse.
Oh, even better. I'll drink that after this.
Sounds like a plan. And I'm gonna have probably a Metarex pumped pre-workout drink.
Yeah, you get no room to talk to me about stuff bad for you. No.
Well, I mean, realistically, you've got like, sugar in your drink. My pre-workout has no sugar. I'm about to go have a bunch of.
Get it right.
Oh yeah, corn syrup isn't sugar.
Corn syrup. It's totally better. Said no one. God, I wish there was.
Well, I mean, says the corn lobby, says the Monsantoites that love the idea of subsidy. You dirty status Coca-Cola drinking Mormon.
I hate you.
Yay.
You're an edgelord. You probably have.
Are you sure? I could be like an edge king.
You probably haven't shaved since 2008.
I used to shave quite a bit because I had this like I'll post a picture in a chat somewhere of me in high school. It was not pleasant.
Either of you guys own Bitcoin?
I don't like.
I have a small amount of Bitcoin Cash. If you wanna donate cryptocurrency, there are links. But like I only own a small amount of Bitcoin Cash because of like what was that Tipperbot, the tip tweet thingy? I don't know. I forget what it's called.
I own about 3 Litecoin. That's about it.
But yeah, I mean, I'm willing. If anybody's listening and they want to donate cryptocurrencies, I'm willing to own them, but I'm not going to go buy them right now on my budget. This isn't a job yet. Once enough people subscribe, though.
It's not going to happen. I'm telling you right now, don't subscribe to this guy. Follow me on Twitter instead. You'll get some great quality tweets.
I canceled my Twitter account recently because they're doing the same thing that Facebook was doing. They're filtering your content, and Google Plus is doing the same thing. So you'll post like liberty related content on there that's quality content, and nobody will see it.
Well, that's why you should be everywhere, though, like, and post it everywhere. I realize that sounds like more complicated than is reasonable, but like realistically speaking, that's what you got to do. You gotta post it everywhere you can, so that you can then have a like sort of a market share in what people are willing to watch. Because if you only post it on alternative media, then you'll only get the alt media crowd, and you'll seem like you formed an echo chamber. Alex Jones. But if you decide that you want to post it everywhere, you'll be everywhere, and you'll be accessible to the masses if they decide to. Because realistically, if you decide that you want to make the Twitter algorithm work for you, or the Facebook algorithm, or whatever, there are ways to do it. You just need to be relentless. And that's like, if people care about the message of liberty, they'll be relentless. That's what I have to say about that.
I don't think the algorithms block the ridiculous stuff like Alex Jones, but they do block people like us.
Well, Alex Jones started a long time ago. You got to work your way in, like a certain type of intercourse that requires lube.
Got to take it slowly at the beginning.
All we need
Yeah.
all we
You
need
get warmed up.
I know how we get big. We need to come up with some crazy conspiracy that doesn't matter, but then turns out to be kind of a little bit true. Like, with Alex Jones and the frogs turned gay.
Well, that's true though.
No, yeah, that's what I said. It needs to be a little true, but it needs to be batshit insane and no one actually gives a shit.
Well, sure.
That's how you get fame right there.
But that's my Chaos Emeralds. That's my little gimmick there.
All right. What do we got? I got a bear here. What do we do with a bear? I got nothing.
Well, I suppose you could just say that the bears are a conspiracy involving stocks, and they always want you to think bear markets are them.
Yeah. They got bears, like something with the fur lobby, and tie that into Satan sex orgies in Damascus during the bombs.
Okay. I was gonna say why Damascus, but that makes sense now.
The bombs were a cover up for I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, that's a pretty good reason to bomb people, to cover up that you don't know what you're doing. It worked for Clinton.
There we go.
But anyway, plug both of your stuff because I think we're running down to the wire here.
Ah, great. Follow @Sprin_Dragon for high quality retweets. At 500 followers, I will post feats.
And Coca-Cola.
I haven't posted anything from Coke. I'm trying to get Pepsi Man to become a thing again.
Well, yeah, but you could be Coke Man. You could just have that, like, you could write a thin line of like that white powder that was not Coke anymore. We promise.
Nothing like high quality Coca.
No longer contains actual coca.
It's a can of lies. What about you, Finian?
Basically, the only place I'm still at is Steemit. I'm trying out Minds.com and MeWe, but on Steemit, I'm at Finian, is FINNIAN. And as you guys already know, I've behind the whole Liberty Professionals thing, and anybody that's involved, regardless of the title or the badge you call yourself, voluntarist, anarchist, basically, if you're for furthering individual liberty, then we're already friends. So let's hook up. Connect me. Yeah. Get connected, basically.
Sounds good. All right. Well, if anybody's interested in supporting me and what I'm, doing here, which is a loose use of the term, you can you can read the description for ways to do that. We'll be doing this every motherfucking Sunday from now until when the president dies, which I will obviously have nothing to do with. Hint, hint. But we'll be doing this for pretty much ever, as long as we can. And by we, I mean myself and whoever is willing to come on. If you have a perspective on what was discussed today, if you have a perspective that you think would be beneficial, or just want to argue, let me know, and we will schedule your appearance on Shit Shooting Sunday every Sunday afternoon, Pacific Standard Time to Pacific Standard 12. And yeah, be well, all. I shall catch up with you next week.
Great, thanks. Glad to be here. Have a good night, guys.
See ya.